Hey, it's the Sunday show, and it's my pleasure to welcome Simon, my co-host, and Brad, our other co-host, to a what will be a wonderful program. And we'll let you guys know some of the secrets that we were talking about in the green room before we get into the show about the length of these programs. But before we get into that, look, if you guys can see on the bottom there, if you can see, we've got a banner going across there. If you want to support the show, please PayPal Don Kerr at extra.co.nz. So I can tell you that Simon and Brad and I aren't here for the money. We're here because we enjoy it. We're here because we love hanging out with each other and sharing information and gossiping, and we love hanging out with people in the chat. But if you do want to help with the monthly subscription so that we can provide this little bit of a forum, we would be grateful. And before I hand it over to my other co-hosts, I want to do a very, very special shout out to Sonia. I talk to Sonia often, and if you guys can keep her in your thoughts, and she's just got a few issues that she needs to work through. Just keep her, in your thoughts. She's okay, and she does a lot of work for the channel. She's out there plugging our channel, guys. She's on other people's shows talking about us. Spreading the word, and we're always grateful for that. And special shout out for Sonia. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, Sonia. Sending our love to you. And
yeah.
Kubert Lover as well. Good morning, Kubert Lover and Arvin. So the gang's all here.
Yeah. The rat bags. Can you guys hear me today? Am I loud and clear? I'm not crackling.
No, you're fine.
All good here.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Today I'm mostly not crackling.
Good.
Like a good
but
pig roast.
Hopefully the show will be crackling. So look, guys. We were just talking in the green room before we went live. We're going to check and see where we're at 2 hours, because Brad's going to give an introduction and Simon's going to follow it up. The album that we're going to talk about's got a heck of a load of songs. And as usual, we go off on all these tangents and we deep dive. And Simon and Brad said that we probably only be up to about the third or fourth song, side one, after 2 hours. But look, we may split this show over 2, maybe even 3 shows, depending on how much we divert.
Are you suggesting, Mr. Walton, that really?
Oh. Well, I've seen your notes and I've seen Brad's study notes, so I've just got a couple of notes here on an iPad, so it's you guys.
I've got a Chromebook full of notes.
Cheers, everybody. I'm
old school. I just write the damn things down,
Well done, Brad. Yes, long.
Well done.
Analog.
Yeah. That's cool. Analog, Brad.
I got enough analog to pile up and go to the moon. So anything I can keep as digital, I do. So I have to alternate between this, Bob Dylan, and doing my family quiz. I do a family quiz on a Sunday, so I've been all going. It's a busy week. 74 albums to listen to, all of Bob Dylan's canon to listen to. And,
did I spell analog right?
You did.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
And you could have given him a capital letter, though. Let's be fair.
Oh, okay.
Analog.
Hey, we're streaming live on Facebook too, and on our channel as well. So, okay. Well, Brad, I suppose you've picked the album. It's your turn to introduce the album that we're lucky and fortunate enough to discuss with you.
Yes, well, I'm the culprit that picked this long one.
Hold on. Here
Yeah,
he is.
Because I've got several copies of it, but this is the 40th anniversary edition.
Yes.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
That's the record right there, guys, that we're diving into today. Double LP, it is.
Let's look at that. Ooh. Full sleeve.
Interesting to note. I'll start at the start. I mean, it's the sixth.
Start at the beginning.
Yep. So this is the official 6th studio album from Led Zeppelin called Physical Graffiti. It was released on February 24, 1975 in the UK and the US. It went number 1 within, I think, the first few days of being out in the UK, US, Canada. And number 2 in France, Australia, Austria, and Spain in the first week.
Wow.
So they assembled once again at Headley Grange, which is where they recorded a lot of material in the past, like the Led Zeppelin 4 and Houses of the Holy, which was the album prior to that. They had 8 tracks composed for the record and arranged in a few weeks 3 more. Jimmy Page had 3 compositions before they went into actually go in and work on this album. So they were in a fairly advanced state. Those songs being Kashmir, the Wonton song, and Sick Again. By the end of the recording session, they'd made 9 songs, which proved too long for a full vinyl LP, but this time Page didn't want to admit any of the songs because on previous records, they'd always have to drop 1 or 2 songs that they'd recorded because they had to make it fit on an LP. Obviously. So,
yeah.
That being said, they opted to make it a double album, which is 4 sides, and they would bring in some of the songs they'd already recorded previously that were shelved. Those songs, I believe, were Bron You Were, Down by the Seaside, Boogie with Stew, Night Flight, Houses of the Holy, Black Country Woman, and The Rover. They were drawn from sessions like Led Zeppelin 3, 4, and Houses of the Holy, those songs that they drew from. Again, they would pick the bulk of the songs for the LP, and the ones that didn't get, they got shelved basically if they got dropped. And in that, I'll say that they may have been in a 3/4 finished state. They weren't completely finished because they went back and readdressed the songs and overdubbed and things like that. So 15 tracks on 2 LPs. This album showcased the band's extensive range of musical styles, everything from rock, blues, hard rock, rock and roll, and folk, and elements of funk and soul drip into a lot of the songs as well. It features some of Robert Plant's most poetic lyrics ever written, sometimes drawing on his own experiences, and I believe He's Gone was a great example of that. He surpasses himself on songs like Kashmir, with his, evocation of love, travel, and exoticism. I'm a traveler both of time and space. So, if you're familiar with the song Kashmir, you'll know that line. 16 million copies to date in the US alone, 600,000 in the UK, 250,000 in Germany. The release had an effect in the US on all their earlier releases. So when they released Physical Graffiti, all the sales of the earlier albums took off, and all 6 albums featured in the US Hit Parade and Billboard charts concurrently. So pretty much their whole back catalogue plus their recent album were in the charts, which is probably the first time that had ever happened in history.
I think, Brad, it's also worth saying that they're under a bit of pressure because their previous album, Houses of the Holy, had not really done that well, had a bit of a mixed critical reception. So there's a bit of pressure on them to come back with a bang.
It was like they really needed to sort of come back and surpass like any sort of negative feedback they received from that. And obviously the commercial viability, they needed to release something that would sell. The critics, which leads me to the next line, the critics for once were in agreement declaring this 6th album a masterpiece, showcasing the maturity of the brand of rock that Led Zeppelin were. I'll quote Jimmy Page here. This is from a book I've got. He said, "I look at Physical Graffiti as a document of the band work in a working environment. Some people have said that parts of it are sloppy, but I think it's an album that is really honest and is more personal. And I think, am I still on? Yeah, I thought it dropped off. Yeah, allowed the listener to enter our world," he said. "So here's the door. I'm in." And he mentioned that he was extremely pleased with the final result of Physical Graffiti. This album was also promoted on a successful US tour, which included a 5-night residency over in Earl's Court. Arguably one of the group's strongest albums, and they're up at the peak of their career. It's been reissued a few times on CD, both 40th anniversary and in 2015. It's gone 16 times platinum just in the US. Recording, rumored at the end of '73, because of all their very intense touring schedules that they had, that John Paul Jones was disillusioned with the group and fed up with touring. And he told their manager, Peter Grant, that he was thinking of quitting. Grant asked him to reconsider and take the rest of the year off to obviously have a think about it. And in that time, they hired Ronnie Lane's mobile studio. Just Bonham and Page started recording less John Paul Jones instrumentally. They started working on Kashmir. And then the studio was turned over to Bad Company, who were on the same label as them, to record their first record. The group did reconvene at Headley Grange, which is in early '74, including John Paul Jones, because obviously he decided to stay, where they recorded 8 tracks with Ron Nevison, who was the designer of Ronnie Lane's mobile studio. Overdubs were done with Keith Harwood at Olympic Studios in London. The title came from Page. He said it was to illustrate the physical energy that had gone into producing the set. The artwork was done by Peter Corristone, and it's noted to be one of the most expensive album covers in history. Well, obviously, the most expensive album cover to make. So there you go. I think.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a wonderful introduction, and yeah. So I'm just going to pass it over to Simon, because I'm sure Simon's got a couple of things he wants to add to that introduction as well, and maybe a couple of follow-up things. So off you go, my friend.
He's on mute, I think he's on mute.
Can we hear Simon? Can we hear you, Simon?
I'm on mute. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
No, never a bad thing.
Cool.
So you can see the cover here.
Yeah.
Also in the Rolling Stones, "Waiting on a Friend."
Yes.
It's the same building. There we are.
Okay.
Trivia fans.
I won't mention that then.
Oh, sorry. No,
That's all right.
Stolen your thunder. That's mean, isn't it?
It's okay. It's all right. It's
but
okay.
the main
We're all
thing I
here
wanted
to share.
Share. He said through gritted teeth. You can always cut me off, Andrew. Don't worry, you're in charge. Remember, I just like to say that that I went to the Earl's Court shows.
Yes,
I went to the Earl's Court shows May the 25th, 1975. Yep. I was at Earl's Court watching Led Zeppelin doing the support tour for Physical Graffiti. Brad, I've said it on here before, but you haven't heard of it. In those days, in the world of analog, that you'll appreciate so much, me and my friend Tony Bainbridge, who lives in Melbourne, we queued up all night outside Virgin Records in Bristol to buy tickets. For it. And there's a big roundabout in Bristol called the Bear Pit. So obviously you could walk through the room, and in one of the things, so we lay in the subway for a night with a load of other people queuing up to buy tickets from Virgin and the tickets for it were £1.50 £2 or £2.50. In 1975, you could go to Led Zeppelin for £1.50, £2 or £2.50. I can't remember which tickets we had for the life of me, but yeah, having queued up all night to get these tickets. Yes, got tickets, in the old analog way of queuing up and getting them. So me and my friend Tony, we went to London to stay with my cousin. Yeah, went to see her, and it was brilliant. It was great. It's one of the highlights of my gigging career.
I bet.
Page with his, the bow and the lasers. Yes, there's nothing better than that.
I'm very happy for you, but I'm very jealous at the same time.
I'm very happy for you. It was well, it's the only advantage of being old, Brad. You see, is that you might have seen the odd thing. Good morning, Brian. How you doing? It's the other end of the Johnny Bean Pond, the ocean. But yeah, it was amazing. I remember, going and that was the first time I'd seen lasers, of any description. I think by today's standards, it was probably quite tame. But
hey, Rick,
when you're just used to a few coloured lights and maybe a disco ball, lasers is a step up in there. And Page in his black dragon suit, standing out in the front with his bow and these lasers going out. I think in those days there was grave health and safety concerns, that you might have somebody's eye out with that kind of thing. Exactly. It would be exactly that. Look at that. Yes, sadly that's not me down the front, but look at that. You see? Way back. That's
the coolest picture of Jimmy Page I've ever seen.
Oh, there are lots of cool pictures of Page in that era, aren't there? In those dragon suits and flailing his Les Paul, and yeah. I mean, it was yes, he did. We got to 20 songs that night, and because I went on the 25th, we had Heartbreaker and Communication Breakdown as double encores. Good morning, Arvin. Good morning, Rick Hefner. How you doing? Yeah, so it was an amazing concert. Obviously, one of the highlights of my gig-going career. And, I don't know whether I won't still have a ticket for it or anything like that. I don't think I kept it. So I had a program as well. But I don't know where that went. Anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, so I can sit here, Mr. Smuggo, saying, well, of course I was there, in a really helpful manner. But the particular highlight was really they did the acoustic bit in the middle. It's like kind of Stools and kind of they did Tangerine, Going to California. That's the way. It's lovely just sitting down and just doing these things. John Paul Jones played mandolin and John Bonham played the bodhran. That's not pronounced like that, but boron or whatever it is. That Irish drum thing. Yeah, just came out the front and just sat around as a little acoustic 4-piece, and I did that, which was lovely actually, really good. One of the highlights for me, that was the acoustic thing. They always like to do that on their albums, and then they had a particular showcase for doing it.
Yeah, one of the interesting things for me about this album, and there seems to be this common theme that runs through a lot of these double albums. When you're a young guy and you hear this album and people are talking about it, you just don't get it. And I'm going to be honest, the first time I heard it when I was about 13 or 14, didn't understand that, it was growing up music. It wasn't clearly pop music in 1981, 82. Mm-hmm. And what you guys have to remember is that Led Zeppelin was still topical because they broke up in 1980, so at high school, people were still talking about Led Zeppelin. In fact, the guitar heroes that we wanted to be, or that anyone wanted to be, who had any kind of backbone, was either Eddie Van Halen or Jimmy Page. So that's the connection for me with Led Zeppelin and Jimmy Page. So it's an album that I grew into. Obviously as you go along, it's an album that joins you in your travel. and travels on your life journey, and that's the great thing about these albums that we talk about. And we seem to be picking great albums, guys. So, hats off to Simon and hats off to Brad, because, you guys are picking good albums.
Well,
but
history's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Distance gives you a real perspective on what's good. We could have picked some not very good albums from then.
I think as we continue the shows, I think we might get critical with some of the other albums that are out there. There's a few albums out there that, there's Hot Dog, for example, that album on, that would definitely get a skip. I'm certainly looking forward to discussing this album, because it's can we say this? It's sophisticated rock and roll. And if this was a popular album in 1975, well, hats off to people who were listening to popular music in 1975.
I think to some extent there's a thing where rock music was quite sophisticated in 1975. But you're right. I mean, if I play my teenage kids Physical Graffiti, they do not get it, because it's not like anything they listen to now much, but that you're right. There is a sophistication to it musically that.
Kubrick lover again. Hey, don't you like it? He's always
quite
got to be
right,
contrary, doesn't he? He's always got to be contrary. It's debatable. Anyway, carry on. You were on something.
So, well, I was going to say that I think that its sophistication is, and when I grew up with it, I was like 17 when it came out. So for me, it was sophisticated. It was, dense, complex. It had lots going on, lots of things, but we were quite used to it then. I mean, after you've had Yes, anything else is, which was dense and complex and had but all those, those other slightly more minor bands that were around then, toured and things like that. So, were quite like, if you went deep enough, like the Soft Machine or those bands, they were quite sophisticated, kind of, roaming into the beginnings of jazz rock and, Steely Dan and those, started off, really quite sophisticated stuff going on musically. And so I think that in some ways we were used to it, which is why we got it in a way that maybe, and it's just different now where they use the same four chords and the same four sounds and the same, it's all narrowed down into very, it was very much then that diversity was a key ingredient in things. Not just doing an album that sounded the same from beginning to end, but actually having that diversity. So having an acoustic number, having in the past they had reggae numbers, and also they just put in what they had and made an album with. And the diversity, you have a slow keyboard number and then a fast, you have a reggae number and a rock and roll number, and that was perfectly acceptable then to put all those things together. And I think nowadays that you listen to albums and that the sound is much more homogenous. The songs, are not so diverse as they used to be in many ways.
Yeah, well, but before we get into going through the tracks and ranking the tracks, as we call the show now, ranking the tracks. But I just want to add one little thing before I pass it on to Brad, guys. What I like about this album, going back, and that I've enjoyed over the last couple of weeks in preparation for the show, is that this album came out in 1975, and who was the hottest band in 1975? Led Zeppelin. They were just, so you've got an album that was smashing, sales, and who was the band that everybody wanted to see. So, it wasn't as if Led Zeppelin were writing 2 years after an album, on the success of a previous album. It was the intersection in history where the album and the tour were just, can we say global? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, global.
Yeah. The tickets
Nelson?
for us sold out in 4 hours.
Yeah.
Which in an analog world is fast.
Oh yeah.
You know, hence the queuing up overnight.
Before we get into the songs, I'll just quickly touch on the instruments and stuff, because I think, especially on even though there's a really consistent sound across the record, some of them were recorded like for different sessions, like I said, set for Led Zeppelin 4, Houses of the Holy, and even back to Led Zeppelin 3 for 1 or 2 tracks. But they chose that Headley Grange because of the ambient sort of hallway sound. So that was a big staple for Led Zeppelin with their drum sound. That was something they capture on everything. And I think that's something that, I wanted to bring up. And I'll just touch on a couple other things with the history. Bonham was Ludwig drum kit. At this stage, he was using a big green sparkle Ludwig. Their recording technique for the drums was pretty much just 2 Newman U87 microphones that paired them, and they were just getting room sounds majority. They would close mic, but the majority of the sound you're hearing is 2 room mics in this hallway. So that was predominantly what they went for, and I think that's probably an important thing to bring up. They recognised that particular premises gave them the sound they were after. But that being said, that they also used like phasers on the drums, which was something like, I know that was done back in the late 60s and stuff, but they actually used an effect like an eventide phaser. It was called a PS101 instant phaser, and they used it in the microphone signal to get the phase. So if they got it wrong, it wasn't an effect that they necessarily put on after. It was done during the
live.
So it was a mic
done live.
Yeah, and the majority of everything was done that way. So anytime you hear phase on the drums, that was how they did it. John Paul Jones is still obviously inseparable from his jazz bass, and he recorded a lot of his bass lines either directly into the console. He had a Marshall bass rig, so for recording, so he used to either do that or both. So his bass sounds are unique for that era for me. They're very punchy. They've got a very mid-range thing going on. So I think that was important. The keyboards, Hohner, clavinet. We used a Hohner electric piano, a Hammond C3, a Mellotron, and maybe even a synth, because I think in the light there's some mini Moog or something like that on there. Jimmy Page predominantly is number 1. As we know, he was very much attached to that number 1 Les Paul. He used some Fender Electrics. He used a 57 Sunburst Strat and an Olympic White Strat. He also used the Dan Electro, which is that black and white guitar you've seen him play live from Kashmir and White Summer when he's playing live. This is the first time he's actually used it in a recording sense, though, on this album. He'd only ever played it, and he used a choral sitar on 10 Years Gone, apparently, which I can hear sitar sort of things going on there, but I hear more guitar when I really focused on that. Acoustic-wise, he just used a Harmony H1 260 and a Martin D28. And amp-wise, he used a Marshall 1959 SLP with a 1982 cabinet. But rumor was he changed the tubes in the Marshall head to KT88s to increase the power and clarity of the tone. Yeah. He obviously used Vox AC30s and Leslie speaker effect, especially on In the Light, and there's a couple of songs where you can hear real Leslie effect. Wah pedal, he'd gone away from like a crybaby to a Vox. So this is his first introduction to a V846 wah, which is pretty sought after these days. And he used a Gotham Delta 101 digital delay, which is a Lexicon product. So these were new effects in that era. So I thought that would be pretty important to note that, because this album has a classic sound to it. I really believe it's got a very classic sound, and I don't think any other band, even in this era, could try and capture what they did, because they were Led Zeppelin. That's just, there was only one John Bonham, there was only one John Paul Jones, there was one Jimmy Page and one Robert Plant. So, are we ready to get into the songs, or you guys want to touch on any of that?
No,
no, I just want to say thank you for giving us and our viewers that technical information, because we are a guitar-based program, and to get that information out on our streams is pretty good, because some of the information that we want to get, Simon, we can't get. So if you've done the research. To present that that information, that's fantastic, because that's what we try to do. So thanks, mate, appreciate that. So So look, I'm just watching some of the comments in the chat, and people are jumping the gun. They're talking about Kashmir, and they're talking about hold on, we're getting there. Hold on, guys.
A whole way to go before we get to Kashmir.
Easy, Tiger. Easy, Tiger.
Yeah, hold on. I do have to say one thing, though, before you kick off. That Dan Electro, I don't like that guitar. I never have. That okay. Sorry to divert the sorry, but yeah, we can talk about that.
It's interesting. He only used that guitar as a color guitar on a lot of the songs. Like, he used to use that guitar on Kashmir Live, but recorded it with a Les Paul. So and the Dan Electro was a color guitar. So because it had a different frequency in the mid range, so they didn't
white.
Yeah. Well, clearly, clearly, Brad. It wasn't because it was a cool-looking guitar that he was using it. Well, Jimmy Page likes interesting things, so maybe, but it ain't no Les Paul.
Guys, I'll be right back. Hold on, one sec.
Okay.
So, are we right to get started? I mean, I can do my start on.
No. Let's go.
Right. Custard Pie. What can I say about this one? Powerful, adrenaline-packed blues number. Blues rock, should I say? It's a very sexual song. It's a song that's predominantly about a woman's genitals. American slang blues pioneers would sing about custard pies and pies. So it was Echo's Blind Boy Fuller, I want some of your pie, and paraphrasing Mississippi Cheeks, now drop down mama. So it's a big thing in this era where artists would borrow things from other art, like, blues artists and everything like that, because they were heavily influenced by the blues, obviously, especially with Plant. He was right into all those guys in the 1930s and late 20s sort of blues, the heavy Delta blues as well. So a lot of Robert's lyrics, were driven, and his ideas came from a lot of that. So obviously Page on this number is using his main Les Paul, straight into a Marshall. Look, this is where they come back saying, we're proving to our fans that we're still capable of delivering blues rock with Absolutely. The same determination as the early days. So they came back with a bang. That was the first song in. It's like, here we are, guys. This is setting. We're back. We can still do this. We're back. And the sound is really dry on the guitar. It's a bit of natural distortion without reverb. Comes in on the right side, immediately joined by John Paul Jones on the Hohner clavinet, which is on the opposite side. That he comes in doubling the riff. Bonham comes in on the snare bang, and then the groove, just straight off the bat, there's just like a thunderous groove. I know Page really wanted to go back to this Headley Grange, and I've said that a few times, because of the fullness of the drum sound, and it's really evident on this song in particular. The acoustics were perfect for the drums. The maracas that are on the track were an overdub, so Bonham obviously put maracas on it as well. If you have a listen, there's some maracas there. John Paul Jones plays his jazz bass. He's really locked in. He's not playing anything too crazy in this song, but he's just keeping it tight and locked in with the drums. The vocals are really pushy, and I will make mention here at about 3 minutes and 9 seconds in, you can hear like Robert's voice falter a little bit, and I reckon this is probably due to the operation he had in 1973 in his vocal cords. It's a powerful vocal performance. He's in the higher register, very suggestive lyrics. The delivery, the delivery is phenomenal. But Plant never really learned how to protect his voice in the early days, and the strain coupled with smoking habits took its toll on his voice, and he had to get surgery on his vocals. I think it might have been nodes. I'm not sure. But yeah, the result on that was his range was no longer able to soar as previously. But I mean, wow, what a vocal still, considering he just had that done the year prior. Notably, Jimmy Page using a wah. That was his new wah. And, Jimmy Page is Jimmy Page. What can you say? He's always right on the edge of coming off the rails, but he just holds it in there. The harmonica lines at the end are perfect. I mean, that's Robert Plant channeling his Delta blues on the harmonica. What an excellent song to open the record with. And back with a burst of power and passion and freshness. I gave it a 10 out of 10, and wow, what a song.
Yeah. Just an addendum to that. Your Robert Plant had surgery for nodules on his vocal cords in late 73, early 74.
Yeah.
So so it's apparently it was still quite raspy on the when they came to record this album. So I didn't particularly notice it myself, but I should pay more attention. But so I agree. I think it's a great opener. They come, there are several things as ever that with Led Zeppelin you just pick up, that you cannot get past what an amazing drummer John Bonham is. I cannot. Listen. I was listening to this yesterday, and I marvel at what a great drummer he is. He knows when to really hit it, and he knows when to lay off, and he's got such swing. The speed of the songs is perfect so that they swing. Yeah, for me, they're absolutely, they do what they are, and that as ever, John Paul Jones, the multi-instrumentalist. If we got anything we need, Jonesy will play it. From recorders to clavinets to synthesizers, takes it all in his stride, knocks them up. So the other thing I'd say that I noticed particularly was what a melodic solo player Jimmy Page is. How melodic the solo. I have a word for albums. Today's word will be melodic. I wrote it down a lot. But for me, it's a great funky riff. It's a real classic Led Zeppelin stomper. I think that again, you can feel them expanding out their musical territory by having a synthesizer on it and a clavinet and things. Which is not something they've done a lot before. I also say about Led Zeppelin is how much I feel you could dance to tracks like this. They weren't just, heavy. They were songs that and I can remember, I've talked about this before, that when we were teenagers, we used to go to a local nightclub, and for the most of the week, it was a local nightclub, did disco stuff. But on a Wednesday night, they had a rock night, and these songs, Custard Pie, and we'll get onto the other ones, would appear, and you could dance to them. So I like to put that in as something that I think pre the click track and pre the 80s syndromes and all of that these were things that you could dance to. They had a swing, they had a groove to them. You used that word, Brad. The groove that enabled that they weren't just sit down and listen to songs. You could move to them as well. So I too am giving this a 10 because it's one of my favorite tracks, Led Zeppelin tracks. Really,
Yeah.
really good. Yeah.
I'm going to echo a little bit about what Simon said. It's a song that you can dance to, but it's also a song that guitar players could identify. It was a song for guitar players to riff along to. I'm going to be honest and tell you that a lot of my notes are from a book called Experiencing Led Zeppelin. So if you guys haven't checked that book out, please do. I've made reference about this book a few times on a couple of the other Led Zeppelin shows we've done, but it gives me a couple of insights into the songs that I want to share with you. It's a 12-bar blues progression, and that's the great thing about Led Zeppelin, is that they can disguise that. The way that they can speed up and slow down and not come back on the full chord. It's fantastic. So while it's familiar to a lot of us and to a lot of guitar players, it kind of isn't. So it's going to appeal to those surface layered rock music fans too, So interesting little thing there. The key, guys, for me with this song always is the vocals by Robert Plant. We're so used to hearing him sing, but on this one here, he's just doing something completely different. It's like someone's poured gasoline on him and lit the match, and he's just on fire. 10 out of 10 for me. Always has been. It's never a skip. And it's a song that I can play acoustically and that I've played many times with friends drunk for 20 years.
Yes,
Don't drink anymore.
That's I'll echo what you said there with the guitar part. That was one of the very first sort of Led Zeppelin things I learned to play on guitar. That little intro riff with the A drone and running it up. It's a very blues progression. But yeah, well, what a song. Anyway, but I just think they were right on the money with that song. They couldn't have done it any better. There's nothing I would change in that song whatsoever.
No, nothing at all. What a statement. Yeah.
The record
Put you on notice, didn't it, for what was going to happen?
Yeah.
If that wasn't enough, then the next song, obviously we'll get onto that, was the Rover. Now this song was originally an acoustic number, and it apparently had hints of like a Hendrix all on the Watchtower sort of feel to it. It dates back to Page and Plant's stay at the Welsh cottage Bron War, and they reworked it obviously and re-recorded around the 1972 at Stargrove. I'm just having a look here. I had a note here. I was trying to remember what it was. They gave it a new lease of life for Physical Graffiti, basically. So they revisited the old track. This song, it's ranked one of the band's great hard rock successes by heavy metal bands of the 80s and 90s. The Rover means like a vagabond or a wanderer. Basically, if you have a listen to this, it's Plant notes that there's a new, like the lyrical content. He notes that there's a new plague on the land relevant today, really. Rising from the shambles of the old. I mean, there's a lot of relevant content there in relation to what's even happening today. A new world land rising from the shambles of the old. But yeah, the lyrical content is quite. If you really dive into the lyrics, it's quite a strong content. The topic is quite strong. But, Bonham gets the song started with his bombastic swing and drum pattern. Proves that he's still one of the strongest drummers of that era, and probably cemented him as being the greatest drummer of all time. But this track really shows that. Page swaggers in with attitude, posing the power to come with his Les Paul. it's got a great sound going on there, with a bit of the Eventide phaser on the guitar. John Paul Jones is locked in. He underpins the riff and the drumming. Bonham and Jones are just brilliant in this. There's a lot of uncluttered and locked vibe there. Bonham's just swinging and Jones is just locked in on even like just he's riding that one note, just keeping it tight. It's interesting you mentioned like Bonham never really sped up and slowed down a hell of a lot. He was like a metronome, human metronome. Robert's voice on this is perfect. Lyrics, sustained vibrato, powerful as ever, blues rock performance from him. I've always appreciated Les Paul, the doubled overdubs he's done, like he's arpeggiating those arpeggiated bits. The solo's clean, it's melodic. There you go, Simon. Technically, it's technically simple, very unique phrasing. There was actually a rumor that the solo was lost by their engineer.
I saw something about that. Yeah,
Neverson, but it was salvaged by Keith Harwood. But Neverson was debating it, saying he wasn't actually part of this recording session.
That's right. He didn't know where that had come from. I saw an interview with him saying, "Well, I've no idea where that comes from. I wasn't part of this. Don't know what that's about at all."
Look, like song is as strong as ever. I love it. It's 10 out of 10 for me as well.
Rick, good night, mate. Sleep well. And thanks for coming and listening to us. It's really cool of you.
Awesome, Rick. Yeah, it's been a while. Thank you. We touch base on other bits of social media. So it's always
he's a
nice
good guitar
to catch up
Player,
with
Rick.
him.
Does some lovely stuff. Yeah.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah. Catch him if you can. I agree. I mean, I think there's the drum roll opening and the phased pan guitars that I really liked as well. This is very much a Page speciality. Again, I agree. The overdub, the arpeggio guitars and stuff like that, which I think is great. And just an example of that a lot of it's not flash, is it? It's not massively flash. But what it does is it gives the song extra dimensions and extra things that you bring it in. And I think that that they're never afraid of going along with some, and then they'll do something completely different. So it'll all change and they'll have a completely different section. Never afraid to do that. And I think that ability and that ability to play really melodic solos that you could sing, whistle, sing, whistle. There's an outdated option. That it's one of the things that struck me. You could wish, that classic thing about whistling a solo kind of thing, And I think that you can, it's not all flash and whiz and can you play faster. It is about feel and about the right thing that fits the song, does what it's supposed to do. And I think that Page's particularly, his taste is amazing for that sort of thing. I think their ability to bring in other instruments is amazing. I mean, I think that John Paul Jones is almost the unsung hero of Led Zeppelin. But if you listen to what he's playing, some of it's not what you're expecting at all. I mean, I've listened to this through the week. What you begin to notice is you think he's not playing the root notes of this at all. What is he doing? And I haven't had time to figure it out.
Hey,
but I think there's a. Hey, Randy. Good morning, Warren. Mr. 8, Warren 8 has arrived.
So Randy was steered to us by Sonia. So thank you, Randy.
Sonia,
so if you guys haven't subscribed to Randy's channel, please do. And Randy, subscribe to our channel so you can keep up with the weekly updates that we do. Sorry, Simon.
No, that's fine. So as I said, I think that John Paul Jones, not really, but is kind of the unsung hero because of what a class player he is. That fitting in with John Bonham completely, and that must have been a task all of its own, really, mustn't it? Fitting in with such a monumental drummer as that, but to be able to do it, and also to just weave in those melodic things that he did, and not play the usual kind of things as well, I think is a worthy of note. Across the whole album, I think, as a thing. So, but I mean, for me, a 9, never a pass, never ever a pass. Great song, great recording, and as I say, really beautifully arranged kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a little bit of what you guys have said too. My research pointed out the bass line. It's single note bass line, and again, it's the simplicity that Jonesy provides. Sometimes we can, isn't it amazing as guitar players and music fans, and sometimes you hear something, and then someone shows you the chords or the scale, and it's not as hard as you hear. And sometimes I'll stick my hand up and say, "Oh, this is not hard at all." When you learn something. So I think that's one of the great things about Jonesy, is that he can be as complicated as he wants, and clearly through other songs on this album he is. But on this song, he's just very simple, following the rhythm parts. Again, just something that a bass player does intuitively. It's a 9 out of 10 for me, and it's never a skip.
Excellent. Wow. Just when you've got time to breathe and get a bit of fresh air, you get hit with "In My Time of Dying." So 11 minutes, 8 seconds long.
Wow.
It's like a journey, this song. Some of the most amazing playing you can imagine on this song, honestly. So my notes here, I've put like this is like a highlighted, charged reworking of a gospel blues song, "Jesus Make Up My Dying Bed," which originated in New Orleans in the mid-20s. Blind Willie Johnson, which he did takes of it in 1927. Recorded by countless blues artists since. In 1961, Bob Dylan did "In My Time of Dying" on his first record, which is most of their inspiration from. So I was listening to your show yesterday, and yes, they drew most of the inspiration from Bob Dylan on his version on this one. This was first recorded. Lyrically, it's basically faced with their final judgment on deathbed. Beautiful slide intro, not reminiscent of anyone else's version. Les Paul, Jimmy Page on the Les Paul, number 1. Phasing again, open tuning, pan to the left. The second one is the down electro. So I've got documented. He used the Les Paul and a down electro together on this. There's not many overdubs because the majority of the song was recorded live. The drums come in and give it power and depth. It was recorded obviously in that Headley Grange using the single pair of Newman 87s in the entranceway. The drums are like leading the way through the starts and stops with swagger and ambitious beats, with kick and snare, off timing while the hi-hats are keeping it together. It's a highlight for John Bonham on this record for me. It showcases his ability, even earning himself main songwriting credits on this one. And I will note on this record, they gave John Bonham songwriting credits, like main songwriting credits on a couple of songs input. And this was heavily leaning on John Bonham, this song. He I think from memory, he used to like voice out the melodies and stuff like that to Page, and Page would work it out. So that was, and that in itself, he wasn't just a drummer. He actually came up with it as well. John Paul Jones is playing outstandingly on this. He's keeping the low end together with some insane pulsing, moving, muted bass lines, and I'm pretty sure he's using a fretless P bass on this song. Robert Plant singing his heart out. The riches in his voice in this song, you can really hear that he really knew how to use his voice properly, and he learned how to use his voice properly by this stage. So that outro bit where they're jamming out, there's that interplay between the guitars and the instrumentation and the singing, and just notably at the end when they finish and someone coughs and well, cough, and then John Bonham, that's got to be the one, isn't it? Because they did it sort of takes, and he thought that was the best one. So for me, 11 minutes 8 seconds of brilliance. It's epic. It's probably one of the highlights on the record for me, and it's 10 out of 10.
I heartily concur. I think for me the interesting thing about this is that they have 4 minutes of just the voice and the guitar. That first 4 minutes, it's just and I think that that not many bands, you wouldn't be allowed to get away with 4 minutes before of just really just the singing and that before the band comes in. With a kind of, I think that this is the sound of a band in control. Jimmy Page very much knowing what he wants to do, not being afraid of doing 11 minutes, saying that's what we've got, that's the arrangement of the song, that's how it's going to work, and not having a producer, typical producer, well, guys, you should come in earlier. Don't do so much, kind of, trying to shove it all. Whereas I think that it gives it, and I think that you've used the word, Brad, it gives the band, they breathe, it gives you a chance, it builds up, and it kind of, it gives a chance to really get into the song. And before you get into the, the main body of the song where John Bonham comes in and Jonesy come in, which is, I made a note, is only after 4 minutes, Where have you been, boys? Kind of thing, which I think is just brilliant, really, and not something that anyone would do now, because I'm not sure they'd have A, the confidence, or B, the material, or C, in many ways, to have it, the producer would allow them to go 4 minutes of just that, that kind of thing. But again, I made notice of saying, that's one of my highlights for me, is that confidence to do that. I think when they come in, it's great swing to it as well. When they get into the main body of it, I love the slide guitar stuff and things. I think it's morning, Mickey. How you doing? It's an epic song, and they do it justice, and it's become, when I saw them, they did it at when I saw them in. Did I mention I'd seen them in '75? They did it as like the second or third song in kind of thing. But I just wanted to pick up on that the thing about John Paul Jones of being such a great bass player. I mean, when they did, if you listen to the O2, when they did. They start off with Good Times, Bad Times. That do that descending bass line. It's just brilliant. That kind of, just that little bit, and when he stop and there's just a gap and he just plays, enjoying it. It's just for me, it just epitomizes all that is great about John Paul Jones. Did I mention I've worked with him? I'll stop at that now.
It's also important to note that they recorded the majority of this on live.
Yeah.
There's only very minimal overture. So you think about that,
But always set up and play. Set up and do the basic rhythm tracks. Do it all, live, and then obviously you probably re-record the vocals afterwards. But Plant would do the vocals live with them, as a guide thing so they knew. Oh, I'm Mr. Record It Live. I'm mega keen on that, all of that sort of thing, because I think it gives it that 4 people in a room playing gives it something that no amount of overdubbing and will give you, basically. And then it gives it a dynamic building block onto which you can then build if you want to. I'll also go back to one of my perennial points on this, which is nowadays you look at a screen and you see the song. When you're doing Pro Tools, you see the song. These guys are not seeing the song; they're sitting there and listening to it, and then saying, "What else does it need?" And I think Page is the master of putting in little things, but not too much, and not the things that will, that will overpower the song, or not so much that there's no space. And I think one of the great things about Led Zeppelin is the amount of space in their songs. They're not afraid of stopping, not afraid of da 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 3 4. It's like you're not coming back in like really fast. You're making it's slow, and it's kind of it lets the guitar ring, and it it gives it a chance to really kind of breathe and swing in a way that if that thing I've talked about. If you look at a track on Pro Tools and you go, oh, there's only a guitar and a bit of vocals on it. Oh, I think we need to fill in the gaps. It becomes like painting, kind of thing. Irresistible to fill in the gaps. Whereas if you listen to it, you go, that's really cool. Leave it. And I'm sure Page is not doing anything with that. Leave it alone. So for me, this song is a 12 and not a skip.
Yeah, I love the song too, and when you're a young guy and you hear that slide. I fell in love with it. I wanted to sound like Jimmy Page and Johnny Winter. They were the best slide guitar players I ever heard, and for me, it will always be about that slide guitar. I just fall in love with it every time I hear it. It's just monumental. It's a wonderful example of playing slide with a good vocalist. It's that mystical thing, I think, that we want to hear, and it's clearly in this song. And I just want to echo something that Kubrick lover mentioned in the chat. It's about like he's in an echo chamber or something like that. I was always told that, he was trying to sound like he's in purgatory. He's waiting to get into heaven. In my time of dying. 10 out of 10 for me. And that would be one song that I would give to somebody to listen to say this is an example of Led Zeppelin. If they had never heard of Led Zeppelin, that would be one song.
Yeah. Could I say just contender for greatest opening side of a rock album? 2 10s and a 9. I don't know. You might get different. I don't think you get any better than this, really. They said, you put that on. It's not messing about, is it? It's a morning, Great Vanzini. I think it's worth pointing that out, that if ever you wanted proof of their power, and their brilliance, that it says it all, really. Those 3 songs, I don't think you get any better than that. You might get different, but I don't think you get any better, would you?
No,
it's a classic example of a band in form, Brad and Simon. Love it.
Yeah, we're on to song 4, Houses of the Holy. Now, this song notably was recorded in April '72 at Olympic Studios and mixed in electric band. It gave its name to the 5th album, but it was dropped because they in the album mix they found that with this album, obviously, like I said, they needed to pick up a few extra songs, and they had this one. They knew it was but there were similarities between Dancing Days and this song, so they've opted with Dancing Days. Even
Sorry, Brad. Great Vanzini's managed to time Kubrick Lover out by accident. Oh dear. Carry on. Sorry, apologies. It's funny.
place of meditation or prayer. That's what they're referring to. Robert Plant was referring to a spiritual relationship with their fans in like concert halls. So that was House of the Holy. It was too similar to Dancing Days, so they shelved it. Page is number one Les Paul. It's a fairly aggressive tone. It's got like a real tubey effect on the guitar. I don't know if you pick that up. It's like a bathed up sort of tubey effect. It's not really clean. It's a bit honky, tubey. It's I think it has a lot to do with the digital delay that they were using at the time. He found a tone, he just went with it. The second Les Paul track is a bit of a sort of honky tone as well. And I think he used a 57 Strat Sunburst on this song as well, on Houses of the Holy. John Paul Jones, jazz bass, probably using his pick into a Marshall and also direct input into the desk. He's playing quite really locked in with the drums there. Vocals, Robert Plant, it's a quieter vocal at first, smooth, warm tone. Last two verses, he really digs in, and nice BVs by himself. Ends on a power. Nice harmony guitars as well on the Les Paul. The drums are cruisier. He's holding that swagger that he always has, Bonham. I think they overdubbed some tambourine and cowbell at the same time. And a perfect example, if you really listen, you can hear squeaky kick drum pedal. And I think he liked I think he was quite, he liked the idea of having that squeaky sort of kick drum pedal in there. I love the track, but in relation to how I rated some of the other songs, I gave this a 7 out of 10. It's definitely not a skip.
No, I just had a look while you were talking, Brad. Apparently, what they did was there's a thing called a phase reverse button on most mixing desk channels. If you play back a sound and also phase reverse version of the sound, the two versions cancel each other out. But if you do the same thing but add delay, one sound very slightly from the other, you can get some quite odd metallic sounding effects.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So not really practical as a live thing, but apparently it cuts the volume of the guitar. But sounds like it could be that. Anyway, there you are.
Time out.
yeah, poor old Kubrick Lover accidentally got into time out from Great Vanzini. Obviously, been appalling in the chat, Kubrick Lover. No, you haven't. It's so I too, Houses of the Holy, is a kind of I talk a lot in here about programming and stuff, and clearly. It's just a slightly different thing here. We've had the epic side one, and you need to break it up with something else. You can have something strong, but something, So I love that. I put melodic verse. Never a loss for a good tune, as Mr. Zeppelin. And I think that Plant's in really great voice on this. The other thing I mentioned was that in the fast descending guitar runs, Bonham does this little kind of shuffle thing. It was just like every time I hear it, you go, oh, I just love that bit. There's a tiny little bit. He just does that this little bit with the drums. So I don't think for me it's like still that get in. Awesome kind of. But playing with the band and just putting it in with the to play along. So I think it's a great track. I think it does a really good job as well of kind of changing it a bit. And so I'm giving it a 9 and not a skip. So not a skip.
Um, look, I think we're hearing Plant vocally different on this song as opposed to the previous tracks. And for me, hearing that lyric, "Let the music be your master. Will
Yeah,
you
see?
heed the master's call?"
Oh, it's uncanny, isn't it? Listen to that.
Yeah, the singing and the lyrics for this song. Interesting that it was on the Houses of the Holy. Now, the Houses of the Holy will always have a special place in my heart because that was the very first Led Zeppelin album I bought, and it's interesting that this song was written for that album, and this song wasn't included on that album, and they included Diamaker, which is an interesting kind of left field song on that album. I love this song. Always have, always will. For me, it will be always the vocals from Plant. It's a 9.5 out of 10, and never a skip.
Damn, I didn't do the halves. I feel cheated.
Well, Brad started it. I don't want to give too many tens, you see.
I don't care about that.
Yeah. No, 9.5.
9.5. That's a really good score. I mean, look, I love the song, but I had to rate it the way I did because of the other songs. So, Trample
Right,
Under.
Brad, you are, of course, wrong, but that's fine.
I'm happy to be proven wrong. Okay.
Sometimes right, sometimes wrong, always certain.
So, Trample Underfoot. This is John Paul Jones' idea. It spontaneously happened. I think the vocal lyric idea was drawn from Robert Johnson's Terrapin Blues back in 1936. I just wanted to make sure. I think he drew the lyrical content from that, comparing a woman's parts to a motor car is what I picked up in the lyrical content. The vocals are really bluesy and rich, good melodies, some big moments in the breakdown vocally, if you have a listen. This was conceived from a jam during the Crumbs Live, so they actually come up with the idea and then developed it in a rehearsal situation. John Paul Jones on the clavinet, and John Bonham's was like a swing machine in this song. Was more influenced by maybe Stevie Wonder musically than the Delta Blues, but the lyrical content was more Delta Blues vibe. Nice solo, great wah use by Jimmy Page. I put there. The song originally was nicknamed Brandy and Coke. I think that might have just been like the element of when they were actually recording the song. That's maybe what they were drinking a lot of. Nice solo from John Paul Jones, and then Page ends with that wah bit of the solo. The highlight on it is the groove. John Paul Jones shines on this song. Lyrically and vocally, I love Robert Plant's voice. The feel on the drums, the improvised outro, that bit where he's like saying, "Can't stop talking about," and the push,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of Robert's favourite Led Zeppelin songs, by the way, too. He loves this song. I gave this song 9 out of 10.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah,
it's a great song.
It is a great song. Yeah. I can remember dancing to this. Another dance song. Led Zeppelin, Shock Horror Pro dance song. I'm completely inspired by Superstition. I mean, it just is, isn't it? It's Superstition slight rewrite, but and fantastic for that, and a great funky for me, a great funky dance track. As I say, I can remember dancing to this rock disco at Tiffany's, where you could dance to these things. I've said it earlier and I'll say it again, that that and I agree that the breakdown is dun, 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 dun. Just kind of lay off and then come back in. Just I love all of that stuff. And as I say, I sort of wrote down, no one can play 4/4 like John Bonham. No one can play. That thing about just what I said earlier about understanding when to play, when not to play, what to play. And just that, just to give it that massive swing, the groove, and kind of, they said that he decided it one of their earlier versions that it was too soul-y, and he rearranged it and started playing more funky drums than and sing. So for me, another great. This is a 10 for me. I wouldn't ever skip this. And whenever I'm listening to it in the car or wherever, it makes, I can groove around to it whilst cooking, no probs. So for me, a 10, a great track, and inspiration from all the right places, and drumming from John Bonham. And
hey Ken, thanks for joining us. Look,
is he a relation? Is he a relation?
Yes.
Is he? Is he your brother?
No,
your
my
dad.
dad.
Oh,
Yep.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Ken.
Good morning, Ken. Thank you very much.
I skipped this song for a long time. The first 5 years, because I was looking for something. In Led Zeppelin, I was looking for some riffs, I was looking for some guitar stuff. So, I'm being honest, I skipped it for a long time. We've said this before, haven't we, Brad and Simon? We get a bit of information, and that information reverberates with us in our intellect, and then we go and listen to something, so we hear something behind the song that we didn't hear for a long time. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why we do these shows, because our little bit of a commentary might help someone else, go back and negotiate these songs. But, Robert Johnson, recorded Terraplane Blues, and he used a car, as a metaphor for a relationship. Trampled underfoot, we've got Plant using, metaphors again, like dig that heavy metal underneath your hood. Baby, I could work all night long. Believe I've got the perfect tools. So when you get a little bit older, these kind of lyrics resonate with you, and because there's something happening generally. So it becomes a meaning as you're growing up. It's not a skip now. It's not a skip because we know now what the song meant for Jonesy in the band, when you consider what he was going to do. And Brad mentioned it in his introduction, he was going to leave the band, and the band got together, being a true band, and said, well, look, we'll give you some more money, but we'll also give you some direction and some construction and some ideas for songs on the next album. And he took it, and this is one of them. So it's a 9.5 for me, and it's never a skip, even though I used to skip it. So time me out.
You used to skip it, but you got better. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so we come to the epicness of Kashmir. So Bonham got main songwriting credit for this one. 8 minutes 37 seconds of epicness I've put here. Inspired by a conversation with beat gen writer William Burroughs. It spurred Jimmy Page onto a new form of musical experience, like hypnotic power of rock, and how it paralleled the music of like Arabic cultures, their music. It then encouraged him to go to Morocco. Page and Plant had taken a trip to Morocco apparently in '73. and originally into driving to Kashmir. Lyrically, it's inspired about a journey from Morocco to Kashmir. Apparently, it's a long trip. Never done it. The song demo from Jimmy Page on his own 8-track back in '73 was apparently called Swan Song.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Page comments, it came to life with John Bonham, basically. This was one of the tracks they worked on without John Paul Jones recently, like when John Paul Jones was having time out. And so I'm just sort of referring to our timeout system. John Bonham, it's an infectious groove. It's there's phase, the Eventide phases on there. It was recorded with one mic with the phase. That's how they use that. But they record the two mics to get the room down, one mic. That's how I understand they did it. It's got a very Eastern vibe to the riff. It's very trance-like. Puts you in like a meditative type state, I guess. The guitar lines, are contagious. That high string, which is a D note, it drones out continuous. And I'll make note that for guitar players out there, this was written in a tuning called Dadgad, which is D-A-D-G-A-D.
Yes.
Open string on the high end, your first string is constantly droning, so it's giving that hypnotic feel, if that makes sense. There's orchestration. The orchestrated strings double in the right-hand side, and it highlights the staccato rhythm as well, like the dun, 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 that descending line. Robert Plant's vocals are amazing on this. His voice sounds rich, and the breakdowns are epic. I mean, those you can hear the breath in his voice. Even it's there. There's body and breath. I mean, they don't record voices like that these days. They perfection and cutting out all the air that you're breathing and all sorts of stuff with gates and stuff like. They left all that stuff in there so that it gave it feel. John Paul Jones noted here that he wrote the strings and brass arrangements for the song, and Hypnotic Mellotron, the two parts, was a wizard on this song. I've made a note here that Robert shines on this song. He's just like outstanding on this song. The way he comes in that first long line, I'll let the sun be down upon that he just sets the mood straight off the bat. You can picture yourself in a car trip, on a long trip. And apparently he said like the journey, he only saw like one person and a camel. That was this trip between Kashmir. I could go on for hours about the song, but infectious groove, hypnotic, puts you in like a meditative type state. I've given it 10 out of 10, and it's a highlight on the record. It's epic.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think this is possibly their greatest song. I'm just putting that out there. For me, possibly their greatest song. It's the difference, the intricacy of what they're doing, that ability not to overplay, and that I wrote down, I repeat, no one can play 4/4 like Bonham. But that whole section where he's just and that playing slightly behind the beat to give it attention against the guitar riff, I think is amazing, and really just gives it, that kind of sort of wanting to go a bit faster, but not, which I think is astonishing. It builds up that tension. And as you say, that ability to create a kind of hypnotic groove, a thing, that you could just lie, I've talked about this before, it's lying back, looking at the stars and kind of just hearing this just music wash over you kind of thing, It's just, for me, just amazing track. I love the fact that they got real people in to play the strings and the horns to go with the mellotron. I think that's really cool. Always up for the real musician on a song rather than a sample or whatever. But yes, I mean, I think that it's that epic thing that they do, but they don't go mad. They go, that's it, that's the groove, that's the thing, that's the sound of it, and we embellish it with strings and stuff like that. It's when I was this sort of age, I hated records with strings on. Oh, string. Will you send that orchestra away? Can't possibly be better with the orchestra on it. Any record. But I, like Andrew, have changed my view of it. But this is one of the songs where it absolutely fits in. It does the thing. Not afraid to go, we're going to have strings and horns on this, not guitars, And as I say, for me, one of the greatest Led Zeppelin songs, if not the greatest. I'll argue with anybody. If you wanted to just play one song and said, this is what Led Zeppelin are about, this would be the one for me. I think probably over Stairway or something like that, myself. I mean, I'm giving it a 12. It's a never mind your 9.5s, Mr. Cook. I'm going, for me, the greatest Led Zeppelin song has all the elements: fantastic groove, fantastic riff, fantastic arrangement, and most important for me, fantastic feel.
Yeah. Jimmy Page always talks about, songs being a performance, and when he's playing live, it's a performance. And when he talks about a performance, it's a lot of things. If you guys don't know anything about Jimmy Page, but we won't talk about Jimmy Page and his philosophies on this show, maybe later on. But one of the things about this song, and I mentioned it on my introduction to the album, it's a song I'm convinced that resonates with you when you've got some experience, some life experience, because a 14-year-old boy didn't understand this song when he first heard it. Probably around 18 or 19 was, when it started having an effect on me. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. I love the song. Just a couple of things in my research that pointed out to me that it is a performance from Jimmy Page's point of view. They had to work out where Plant's vocals were going to fit because of the timing that Jonesy had with the orchestra, against the beat. So we don't want to get too technical, but you can find that information if you want, and that Pakistani Indian Pakistani orchestra that Simon mentioned adds that depth, that colour, and that kind of eeriness to the song. And one other point before we go on to the next one, if you guys haven't seen the DVD, I forget, it might get loud in here, and it's Jimmy Page, The Edge, and Jack White. If you guys haven't seen that, go and see it for Jimmy Page. Don't worry about the other two, but go and see it for Jimmy Page, and you'll see Jimmy Page standing there with his Les Paul, and he's got his lip going like this, and he's doing that riff. It's just
amazing.
It's mind-blowing. And then one more thing too. It's more important to Led Zeppelin. I think it's their favourite song. I think it's Jonesy's favourite song, and I think it's Jimmy Page's favourite Led Zeppelin song. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Plant has certainly said that he would prefer the Led Zeppelin be remembered for Kashmir rather than Stairway to Heaven.
Okay, so Plant said so. That's three. Yeah. That's three Led Zeppers saying that. Yeah. So 10 out of 10.
Out for the Ouija board for the win.
Yeah. 10 out of 10. And certainly one song too that I would introduce to somebody, but I would say to someone that I wouldn't give it to anybody that didn't understand a lot of music, that wanted an introduction to Led Zeppelin. I wouldn't give them, you know, they'd have to be at a sophisticated level to, I think, to appreciate what the song is without sounding snobbish. But I think there's something in the song.
Yeah. Yes, completely. I agree with that.
I
Because
agree.
I mean, that's the end of side two, you know, and for me, you know, if you had it as a single album, you know, just up to what we've had now, you know, it would be, you know, it would be a straight 10 album, really, wouldn't it? It would just be, you know, incredible kind of album. But we've got still more.
Oh, so we're up to LP, the second LP now.
Oh, okay. So just hold on, Brad. So all the songs on side one, I mean on LP one, were all hits. Is that correct? Every single song was a hit.
I don't know. I don't know. They didn't release. They released "Trample Underfoot" as a single, possibly, and maybe some.
But they were,
I don't remember any of the other stuff particularly being. I don't know. Let's have a look. See if they released. If they released. I don't remember particularly anything else coming out as singles. Andrew,
they
particularly.
singles, Andrew. But I do know that on radio, they even though they weren't playing long songs, they were happy to play Kashmir. What, even though it's 8 minutes long, they were radio station.
When I say hits, certainly not singles, but every single song on the LP one is a hit. Gets played,
Gets played.
Opposed to some of the songs on when we go into the second LP. You know, there's clearly songs on there which don't get played. So that was the point I was trying to make. But
complete. Yeah. Sorry, we're taking it literally.
Thanks, Kubrick lover. I'm not trying to be, but I think I think sometimes the music that we talk about, to understand it, there's got to be something there, got to be some meat and bones there. I think before you can probably get in there and chew on it.
Yeah, I think you're right. With Kashmir, it's one of those songs that you could play that as an introduction to Led Zeppelin to someone, but if they're not really heavily into music, that's probably not the one you want to introduce them to Led Zeppelin with.
Might freak them out.
That's a good point.
Kashmir. So we're up to the second LP now, which is obviously got some deeper cuts on it. You know, in the light, like what a way to start the second LP. You think about back in the day, they were always writing LPs like the journey, and they structured the songs on an LP, their journey, and then on double LPs, they had more of a journey in a sense. They structured them to be more like a journey. So you had your dips and lulls, and they all work together. So you couldn't just pick one song and say, "Oh, I just want to listen to that." It was going to put the whole record on. And this song is definitely one of those progressive type vibes. John Paul Jones was the main sort of driving force with this song. He's very progressive with this song. He shines on it. His mastery of keyboards, very haunting synth tones. The vocals are equally haunting, and great harmonies from Robert Plant as well. Like he does Robert Plant. Then he does Robert Plant
again.
He harmonizes himself really well. There's a certain rock element to this song with an Eastern vibe. The lyrics, obviously, about a troubled relationship or pondering, worried, anxious woman, in sinking in despair. That sort of vibe to the lyrical content. The music has a meditative type atmosphere. It's like hypnotic, for a lack of a better word. A lot of that is leaning on some of the effects that Page is doing with Bo at the start on the guitar on his main Les Paul. So you got that haunting, that haunting synthesized tone going on, and then Page comes with the violin bow and stuff like that, which if you really listen to it, it doesn't quite sound like a guitar at all. But it is. It's actually him with the violin bow on the guitar. And
Great.
apparently, Page is noted by saying he was surprised by John Paul Jones on this. He had no idea that he would come up with such amazing parts for this song. He didn't really think that the song was going to lean that heavily on keyboards either. So it became John Paul Jones' like mastery on this song, if that makes sense. The vocals have like that phasing, spookier vibe. So there's that phasing effect again on the vocals. When the band kicks in, Bonham just explodes. The bass locks in with that. The guitars are really supporting the bass and drums and that vibe. It's got a real hard rock flavor to it. There's a riff, which is classic Led Zeppelin style, and that swing that Bonham used to have, that behind the beat. Halfway through, the song evolves into like a new mood, like a dark vibe, and then it goes to a new light. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Then it goes back to a dark vibe again. Then it goes back to light again on the outro bit with the really great vocals and the guitar. I gave this song 9 out of 10, and this song, the more I listen to Physical Graffiti, the more it's grown on me. Obviously, I listened to this record quite a bit to do this, and this song stood out to me as being like a dark horse on this record, and I don't think it gets the credit it deserves, and I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that I'll talk about it better. That in the programming sense, it is a completely, you go to a different place with this song after Kashmir. Changing it completely around and and having, as you say, that kind of, as I said, I'll go back to what I said earlier about one of the other songs, but that they do that kind of hypnotic, eerie thing that only goes on for 2 minutes 45 seconds. So basically have an intro that's 2 and 3, nearly 3 minutes long. And having the confidence, before Bonham comes in, having the confidence to do that and go say, that's brilliant, and we're gonna have it for as long as it, and we're not gonna come in after 30 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever. We're actually gonna let it breathe, let it, draw you into the song, draw you into that kind of hypnotic thing, and I think it's really important that those things are noted, because I think that they give these songs life and a texture that they wouldn't have had if you just nailed them all down to to 3 minutes long, where you have a 15-second intro. It would be nice, but because it's 2 minutes 45 of that drone and the kind of thing, that you get drawn in a way that that you don't if it's 3 minutes long, kind of thing. So it becomes a different thing. So I think you're right, Brad. This is a real sleeper on this record, and I loved it. It's a great song. I love the call and response guitars at the end. I love the kind of textural guitar playing, just playing one note. Classic case of Jimmy Page, understanding that one note will do as good a job as 100 notes. And hats off to him for that. Again, for having an understanding of that. I agree. I think that John Paul Jones's keyboards are great. I think the different parts of it are really interesting as well. That ascending stuff at the end, and that they're not afraid to stick. To put different sections in a song, and make them all fit into one thing, which is really cool. But quite, as you say, to give them quite different emotional contents as you go through the 3 bits. So yes, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10 as well, and definitely not a skip. Definitely. Well, I think as I say, I think that programming wise, also it does a really important job. Introduction to side 3, introduction to kind of more expanded view kind of thing. After the kind of epic rock of sides 1 and 2 kind of thing. That we're as you said, it's a kind of gateway to a more to some other stuff, which I think is is really good. Myself.
Yeah. we all know about the blues influence on Led Zeppelin, and Jimmy Page makes a reference where he calls it the CIA influence. You know, the Celtic, Indian, Arabic influence that a lot of the British blues musicians were lucky enough to have in the 60s, you know, because that was part of the British Empire that was in the UK at the time. So, you know, we had the Beatles doing drone chords with Tomorrow. What's the last song on Revolver? Tomorrow Never Knows, and Rain, you know, doing the G chord, the drone chord, ding ding, when the rain comes. And again, we have it, you know, with Led Zeppelin on this album, you know, having that single note Arabic Indian influence on their music. Very clever of the British blues guys, these British musicians, to incorporate that. Very enlightening, given, you know, what was happening 50 years ago. Again, one of the positive, powerful things that music can do when you consider what's happening around the world politically. And you've got a band, you know, 30, 40 years ago, bringing in these different cultural aspects into the music and celebrating it. Love the song. Just love this album. G'day, Hack. It's a 9.5 for me, and it's not a skip.
Yes. Hey, Hack. How you doing? Hope you're good. Thanks for coming and having a listen. Very cool.
I'm glad you mentioned, Andrew, the Beatles reference there, because I've put a couple of things in here moving forward on a couple of these other songs, so I'll touch on them. But I did pick up the Beatles droney stuff in this record. There's a few records there, and I do think they were influenced by that in this songwriting process for sure, I reckon. The next track, Bon You Earl. It's Page, dates back to 1970, I believe, the beginning of the urethral Page plant sort of thing, where they went to that cottage and they stayed out. Where was it? I'm trying to remember where that.
In North Wales. It's in North Wales.
Yeah. So it's named after the cottage they stayed at. Recorded by Andy Johns in 1970. It's an open tuning for the guitarist. It's CACGCE. So it's like a C type. One guitar. It's recorded with a harmonizer and a phasing effect to give it some stereo dimension, allowing movement in the stereo sort of form, so it doesn't just sound like a dry guitar track. It actually sounds like there's a reverse guitar a little bit, but it's not. It's just the way the effect is. Jimmy Page. It's a dip, like in the whole thing, but it's part of the journey of the record. And I've given it a 7 out of 10. I don't skip it because it's part of the journey, and I love Jimmy Page playing that acoustic. There's a sincerity there in his playing when he plays acoustically. So I think as much as he loved playing rocking out and doing the blues and playing the hard rock vibes, the complete contrast of that was the acoustic vibe of Jimmy Page, and he's a really good example. That's the type of song that puts you in a mood when you listen to it. You just sit there, and I think it only goes for a couple of minutes, and you sit there, just, 2 minutes, sit there, sort of. If you're listening to it as a record in its entirety, it sets you up for the next song too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For me, it's one of those things that just it's a palate cleanser. It kind of that. If you got this far on the journey, and it is part of the journey, and I think it's a lovely tune, and this is the place to put it, on side 3 when you're expanding it out from what you've had on side 1 and side 2. That expansion includes Jimmy Page doing instrumental acoustic stuff, which you got the Black Mountain side of, and I mean this clearly is inspired by some English folk musicians called Davy Graham and Bert Jansch. If you've not come across them, check them out. They are amazing instrumental guitar players. Bert Jansch was in a group called Pentangle, but he's an amazing guitar player and Davy Graham as well. So there's definitely a line from those guys, that English folky thing, into Jimmy Page, and so I think it's, for me, it does exactly that. It cleanses the palate. It's a bit of light, bit of light relief. I think, as I say, it's a lovely tune, and I like the kind of phase guitar bits and stuff on it. It's really cool, and I too give it a 7 because I think of what it does. But I would never skip it. It's because it's, as you say, Brad, so that it's part of the journey. It's part of the journey of the album, and to skip it, you would miss something important. That instrumental acoustic guitar playing, which is an important part of Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page's, makeup as a guitar player and as a composer. That element of, what he does is really important to be included and, made reference to, which is what this song does. So, as I say, it's a 7 for me, but never a skip.
I love it. The fret buzz, and you can hear that rattle because of that weird tuning on the strings. It's it's an interesting song. It's a cool song. It's as Robert Plant apparently said, it's a celebration because it replenishes the memory with magical sunrises. So again, these guys from Led Zeppelin, even when they're giving interviews, they just can't help themselves by being poetic. I love the song. I've given it an 8 out of 10, and I was a bit scared about that because I thought you guys might give me a bit of grief. So you guys have gone 7. So yeah, I went 8. Interesting little point in my research too. It's the last acoustic song that Led Zeppelin did on their on their album. That's the last acoustic song. They did no other acoustic songs.
No. It went yes, because Presence doesn't have anything. Neither does Into the Outdoor. That has anything like that either, does it? No.
So
it did date back to 1972. So this was
Led Zeppelin 3,
that era. So they released it in 74, but maybe even Led Zeppelin 3 would have been the last sort of real acoustic stuff they did. Maybe.
Okay, Mickey's going to put us all in timeout because he's given it a 10.
We're all in timeout, and you can take over.
But it's not a skip. It's not a skip, guys.
No, and I think that's the point, really, isn't it? That whatever score you've given it, that actually what it, this particular place in the album, what it does, is a really cool thing. And I think that the important bit is that none of us would skip it. And I think, that, I don't think it quite has the weight of something like Kashmir and stuff like that. So, which is why I've only given it a 7. That's not the thing.
Cool.
I think it's slight, and I think that that you should skip it. I just think that it's, it's a lighter thing, and you can't always have the heavy. You've got to have the light to go with the shade, and the texture and the difference.
Love It On the Song remains the same.
Yep.
I mean, look, a double album, you've got to have your ups and downs, your dark, your shade. You've got to have it. So you can't just have a double album like constant.
Hey, mate, you go and compare this to, and we're all Beatles nuts. Go and compare this album to the White Album. So when we do skip and play with the White Album next year, that's going to be an interesting.
Yeah. Yes. Some challenging stuff on there, aren't there?
Hang around, folks, for some 1s and some 2s.
Yeah.
We'll move on to Down by the Seaside. Now, this was another one drawn from 1970. It started off and evolved as an acoustic track.
Yep.
was dropped from Led Zeppelin 3. John Paul Jones notably wasn't that keen on it, and that's why it got dropped. Robert Plant pushed to include it on Physical Graffiti, so he got his way, obviously. It's got a real West Coast rock vibe to it. It's got some folk rock energy and vibe to it too, very Californian pop. It's got a nice shuffle on the drums, a nice groove. John Paul Jones on the bass, like the jazz bass. It's got the Hohner piano, which is similar to a Fender Rhodes. Jimmy Page shines. I love his guitar parts. They're all, the tremolo 30. It's got a very country feel. I love how the solo section sort of darkens up, and his guitar tone is really clean in the solo. It's not really overdriven or anything like that. He's cleaned it up. I really love this song. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I just love the energy of this song, and I love it. I understand that it doesn't resonate with certain people, including John Paul Jones, but I gave it an 8 out of 10, and it's definitely not a skip for me. Songs that you wouldn't necessarily introduce a new person to Led Zeppelin with this song, but for me, it's just got a really cool energy to it. I love it.
Yeah, me too. I love it. I think that it's part of that expanding out the sound into side 3. I think it's got great keyboards. I love it. Did you notice this? That the descending keyboard line that John Paul Jones plays is like the turnaround to go into the verse. Did you notice that's the Carpenters?
Is it?
You listen to it's I can't remember which Carpenter song it is. You listen to it and you go, that is the Carpenters. I don't know whether, I'm sure we didn't steal it, but that rundown is the same as one of the Carpenters singles. That made me laugh at it. I love that sort of thing. But it's yeah. I mean, obviously influenced by Neil Young. Apparently he's started off as influenced by Neil Young. I like the subtle drums. I think it's an example. That John Bond, not all thunder and lightning and stuff. I think that I like the faster middle section they go into. I think again that's what Jimmy Page does best. That kind of, he'll put another section in that does something completely different in the middle. I love the swing of it. I love that laid back kind of feel to it. I think it brings a new vibe to the record that we haven't really had before. And we know that that Plant particularly is very enamored with that West Coast stuff. The West Coast bands, and so this influence, definitely an influence of that I feel is really cool. And I love the feeling of space in it as well. Again, that feeling, you just haven't filled in every nook and cranny with sound. You let the song expand, you let the instruments expand into a bit of space and have their own space, and not kind of crammed into a little corner. And so for me, it's also an 8 out of 10 and never a skip. But I completely agree with you, Brad. I wouldn't play it as the first. Here's my introduction to Led Zeppelin. But as I say, for me, it's an 8. And in the context of what this side is doing on the song, I love this side. I thought, having not particularly listened to this for a while, to go back to this and find how kind of fresh and kind of melodic and interesting musically this side was. You said to yourself, I see what's going on here. I understand what's why you would want to expand this and say, we've got some really interesting stuff here, and stuff that deserves to be on side 3 of a record as you expand out. And so I'm thrilled by it. Really, as a thing, and thrilled that they still have the power. 45 years later. Let me remind you, gentlemen, they still have the power to thrill and to swing and to mean something. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a debate about whether or not Neil Young was an influence on this song. There's many photos of Robert Plant in '74 at Wembley Stadium watching Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. So, you know, the discussion for the first 10 or 15 years was, you know, is it the same or is it influenced by Neil Young's Down by the River? It is, you know.
Yeah.
Listen to that slight Western vocal that Robert Plant gives us. Again, just another example of the different vocal capabilities that Robert Plant can give us. The only guy that I can think of that puts on an acting persona when they're singing is Mick Jagger. You know, look at Beggar's Banquet. You know, there's a couple of songs there where Mick Jagger has got clearly that southern accent going on. So this goes all the way back again in the British rock and blues heritage, all the way back to, you know, the late 1960s. So it certainly wasn't strange or unusual for Led Zeppelin to perform this kind of song. It's 8.5 out of 10 for me, and it's not a skip.
So we're all pretty much in ballpark with the majority of these songs so far, aren't we, really?
We are.
Wait for the next one.
Then, because this song, I absolutely love this song. Absolutely love this song. It could bring a tear to your eye if you really get involved. Very complex structure. Jimmy Page. This was a product of trial and error for Jimmy Page's song, and this, I have to say, this highlights how good Jimmy Page was in this song to orchestrate parts and arrange a song. We look at Jimmy Page as being a guitar hero, this and that, but for me, he was always a brilliant songwriter. So this song in particular, the structure of it is quite complex, but they managed to pull it off because Jimmy Page just persisted with it and he got where he wanted to get to. Lyrically, it's based on Robert Plant based it on a woman he dearly loved. It's very personal. I guess, to him, it was a woman that gave him an ultimatum and said, it's the fans on me, back in the early days of his career. And later in life. And it obviously goes back to his era when he was in a band called the Band of Joy, if anyone doesn't know that. He was in a band with John, Band of Joy. It's around that era. So, yeah, that's where the lyrical content is, But back to the music, the orchestrated guitars, Gibson Les Paul, there's Fender Strats on there with a drop D tuning. There's a Dan Electro, and the bass and the guitars are orchestrated. If you listen to what they're playing, it's almost like they're playing the same line at times and they're not at other times, but it's worked out so well. But imagine trying to record this song live. So they were this highlights how good this band was to me, that they could actually construct a song like this with so much structure in it and so much complexity, and they just pulled it off. So I found this song, I picked up on a real Beatles vibe on this song too, like Dear Prudence, like that whole Dear Prudence vibe. And going back to what you said, Andrew, with the Beatles.
Interesting, yeah.
All the parts are working together. Like the parts are slightly different, but they all work together. Robert Plant's in his voice is rich, soulful. There's pain, there's hurt, there's love lost in his voice. You can hear that. He really channeled that emotive sort of thing that he felt to this woman into the song. When Bonham kicks in, it's like this thunderous groove with slight out of timing at the end of each bar. It's like, but it fits. Like his hi-hats keep it in time, but there's there's this swing and swagger that he always has. But if you listen to right at the end of the bar, it goes out of time slightly between the kick and snare, but he brings it, that's his natural thing. He just did that. But for me, the guitar solo, the phase, Gibson, the after solo, the powerful vocals, and the solo out. But the solo in this guitar solo in this song could make you cry. I just think it's epic. I gave the song 10. I don't want to go on too much about it. I actually could, yourself, if you've been in a relationship that you feel like you've lost a love, you could relate it to this and almost break down in tears. It's that emotive. So, yes, a 10 out of 10 for me, and a definite play.
Yeah. Again, I agree. It's a classic Zepp intro. Guitar and bass in, and yet the vocals don't come until after over a minute. So again, plenty of space to bring it in and organise it. Agreed. That again, bringing in a new thing at about 320, kind of that new heavy riff that they do, the texture of the guitars, and just having the guitar and the bass and the vocals and the middle stuff. It's just, you're right. That ability to compose, isn't it, or arrange, compose a song and work out what all the different parts are and put them together so that it really works as a cohesive whole, and then work out exactly what you're going to put on that track, in terms of guitars and stuff. Not too much overplaying, not too much cluttering of it, but enough to give it texture, color, and and as you say, some emotion in it as well. And so yeah, I give this a 9. And so not I haven't had a skip yet. I feel embarrassed that I've had no skip. It's but that's the way I feel. I feel the flow of the album. It flows beautifully. Really well organized, really well programmed. You understand that each song is a step on the journey. It's a new thing, different vibe. Having and I think interesting. I love the fact that if they played it live, John Paul Jones played a triple neck guitar featuring mandolins, 6 and 12 string guitars. Mr. Page, you may have a double neck. I've got a triple neck. It's lovely, yeah. So a 9 from me, and so not a skip. I love this. It's another great song from them. Buried on side 3. It's really cool.
Yeah, I won't go into the emotional side of the song, because I think you guys have summed it up pretty well, especially Brad. But I have made some notes here on the technical aspect of the song, because again, I think this is something that we love about these guys, because they were using machinery, they were using tools, they were using effects and amps, and they weren't using computers, guys. So just goes to show how much of a master Jimmy Page is. So he's working at his Plumpton home studio. So he originally apparently wanted the song to be an instrumental, and then they've got, like Brad was saying, you've got this orchestra of guitar sounds, that reverb, where he's working out how to do the reverb. He's got that Leslie speaker going on, that phase shifting. It's just just a wonderful piece of Jimmy Page-ism going on there. And then they take that and they go and do that in Ronnie Lane's mobile recording studio, incidentally, which was cheaper than the Rolling Stones one, because I wanted the Rolling Stones one, but the Stones one was, because Mick and Keith were always chasing the dollar or the pound back, because apparently they had some issue with the government, tax bills and all that. But anyway, just a wonderful example of that analog thinking that these guys were doing. This is something, guys, that I'm particularly looking forward to next year, and I don't know how we're going to do it when we do the producers show. It probably won't appeal to a lot of people other than probably just us when we do it. But you know, I just think it's fascinating that these guys just had the ability to use their ear and just use this gear and produce something like this song. It's 8.5 out of me, and it's never a skip.
No.
So did you guys pick up on the Prudence thing with this song? Did you
Yes.
hear?
Ding, ding. Yes.
I could hear a lot of it.
No,
Once
not particularly, but now you say it, yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That's interesting.
It's what the CIA effect, the Celtic, Indian, Arabic. Just wonderful how those Eastern cliches. Yeah.
And the guitar solo on that in that song, you know, and I know I just discussed it, but if you haven't listened to that particular song in a long time, go and listen to it and listen to Jimmy play the guitar solo. It's not tremendously amazing. It's so emotive. It's
beautifully melodic, isn't it? It's beautifully melodic.
From deep, you know, he's feeling it. So, and anyway, we'll move on to Night Flight. Is that what we're up to? Sorry, I'm lost.
We are side 4.
Yep.
Night Flight. This came out of a rehearsal. To me, this song, well, apparently it was meant to come. It was done during pre-production in 1971 for the 4th album, and it was recorded. The beds were recorded back then. To me, this song's got a real Who vibe. The band The Who. I don't know if you picked that up or not. It was recorded at the same time as Black Dog and Stairway to Heaven, but they obviously shelved it. They resurrected it for this. It's a well-crafted English-type pop vibe song. You rarely hear John Bonham play the hi-hats like he does in the intro of this song. That was something that really sort of, once I sort of discovered that, I was like, I couldn't get it out of my head how he was doing that sort of feel on the 16s on the hi-hat. That was really not really, he doesn't do that often. So notably the Les Paul through a Leslie speaker and the rhythm guitars, John Paul Jones on his jazz bass. It's got the Hammond C3 in it, very distorted. And Jeff Buckley covered this song too, if you haven't ever heard that. It's a really good version as well, but I've deviated a bit. I gave this song a 7 out of 10. I don't skip it, but I can understand someone skipping this song because it's kind of an odd feel for Zeppelin. Definitely not one you'd introduce a new person to for Zeppelin. But for me, 7 out of 10, I really like the energy. And I also mentioned I love Robert Plant's vocal on it when he starts going, I just, when he does all that stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Robert Plant shines on this record for me as well. It's one of his better vocal records, in my opinion.
Yeah. Couldn't agree. I think it's great. Apparently, it's about he got the ideas from after reading a news headlines entitled "Nuclear Damage Test Threat." So right. I think there's some nuclear stuff up in there about that. I'm wondering why there seemed to be so little peace and love in the world. 1975. But I mean, they pretty much are all in together. You know, it's a bit out on the drums on it, but they all come in together, kind of a straight in. And in contrast to some of the other songs, no long intro for this, straight in, boom. I put Led Zeppelin do a shuffle kind of thing. Got John Bonham doing that kind of shuffle drum, which I loved. I thought I'd give it a different, which he hasn't really done before, and kind of gave it a really different vibe to it. I love the Hammond organ as well. Hammond organ, definitely great stuff from JPJ, and also no solo, no guitar solo in it. So proving again Mr. Page's instincts is the song is the song, and if it needs something, I'll do it, but it doesn't necessarily need it. So I would never skip this. I gave it a 7 too, Brad. But again, I wouldn't skip it because I think it's part of the journey. It's part of that expansion that we've been talking about over side 3 and side 4 into different areas, doing different things. completely, completely think the song is worthwhile and should be there. And I think if you get into side 4 and you're still thinking the songs are worthwhile, and then then it's a that means it's worthwhile as a the decision to make it a double album is well founded, basically. So I'm absolutely, it's a great song, and I love it, and I would never skip it.
It's a bright, poppy song.
Yeah.
It's bright and poppy. Elements there of Garth Hudson with the keyboards going on there. So we take a step back, Dylan, Garth Hudson, the band doing their thing together. I used to skip it. Because it didn't have the guitar solo, But listening to it again over the last couple of weeks, guys, I barely give it a 7. I wouldn't skip it. Because it's another side of Led Zeppelin that can surprise you. I wouldn't give it to somebody that was new to Led Zeppelin, but if you wanted a song, again, like Dire Maker, the first time we heard Dire Maker, it's like, what's going on here, it's one of those songs. So interesting in its appeal, but it's not a skip.
No.
So that brings us to the Wonton song.
The Walton song.
The Walton song, yes. It's all about Andrew.
This one had a working title called Desire, and reminiscence of the Immigrant Song riff. So if you can sort of picture the riff of Zeppelin 3's Immigrant Song, it's got that sort of and refrain type riff called. And this is a fantastic example of Bonham's drumming, like finding the right thing to do at the right time and holding back, and he's just amazing on this song. That those little kick and snare things that he does at the end of the riff,
like
drumming. Note that it's all on single kick drum too. It's not double kick drum, the stuff he does. So, but that was very natural for him to just lock into a riff. So the drumming became like part of the guitar riff, if that makes sense. So the drumming was actually part of the riff. Notoriously, Jimmy Page is notorious for breaking things into like segments in a song. Like you'll do a riff. With a song like this, he'll throw a chord structure in after the riff. So there's this burst of the burst and refrain riff with the drumming, and then it goes into a pre-chorus with diminished seventh chords. There's all these diminished seventh chords, down, 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 and it just gives the song color and dimension that it was lacking. Like it's like he knew that it had to have that in there. So I really love his use of riff into those colorful diminished type seventh chords. There's a Leslie speaker on, in the second part of that, you can hear the Leslie speaker come in an overdub. For me, the solo, it's got that Leslie speaker effect going. I'm sure most of it's done on his number 1 Les Paul with a Marshall. You can sort of get that vibe. The solo is nothing special, but it suits the song. Like it's just the right vibe for the song. It's not overplaying, it's not underplaying. The vocal on it, Robert Plant's obviously singing in his ballpark, in his capability of doing what he's doing. And for me, I gave the song an 8 out of 10. Definitely not a skip. I love the song, but I gave it an 8 because of how I've rated some of the other songs. It's still, it's still a great song though.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you come back with a sort of classic Zepp riff, don't you? Dun, 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 dun. That, as you say that, and you go, oh right, back on this territory again. Okay, and and I agree with you about. I made that note about when he goes into that really interesting chord structures. It's not just a straight majors chord. They are those kind of diminished seventh things. And thank you for that. That I think is really cool. Really, again, another texture, another kind of unexpected thing that he does just to kind of keep it fresh and interesting. And I love the keyboard and guitar interplay as well. I think that's really good, really cool. I mean, again, let's say it again. What a great drummer John Bonham is, just in case you haven't got the message. And he is I think you listen to this record, and if you don't get why he's probably the greatest rock drummer, probably. Everyone's got their favourites, which is fine. But, so I love the swooping back into the riff. I love the Leslie guitar solo, through the thing. I think I agree with you, Brad. It's not like the flashiest solo in the world, but it suits the song really well. There's a kind of melodic feel to it. Kind of, taking the melody, playing something not, as I say, not really fast and really intricate and really difficult, but just playing something fits the song, what the song is doing. So I too gave it an 8, absolutely an 8, and never a skip. I love the journey of this record. It's really great.
It's a great song. A guy's crying out in the night because his youth and his energy has been sapped out of him by a wicked woman. It's all overdrive, and it's electric fire. Yeah. And those hooks again. I've got to echo what you guys have just said. Those hooks from Bonham are outstanding. Look, I love it. Was always one of my favourite songs. Always one of my favourite songs. It would be a song that I would give someone to listen to say, hey, check it out. For a lot of reasons, but specifically maybe for the drumming. But again, I've got to do a shout out to Page. Sorry, not to Page, to Plant. All these P's. And that hoarse vocal. He's got all this music happening around him, and once again he delivers this vocal. It's a 9 out of 10 for me, and it's never a skip.
No.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A very valid point. He always found the right vocal melody to suit the song too, which is something I'm really quite hammer home a lot. Is vocal melody is really important in the song to me. So he always found the right to suit the riff, and he'd sing over it, not try and sing around it. Sometimes he'd sing over it, sometimes he'd find the pocket, sometimes. So yeah, I agree with you there, Andrew. But so we're up to Boogie with Stu. Now, I believe this is a song that dates back to 1971 when they were at Headley Grange sessions. They actually did hire the Rolling Stones mobile studio, and Ian Stewart, the piano player or ex-piano player, is it roadie ex-piano player? Is that what they used to call him? I don't know what the Rolling Stones called him, but they nicknamed him something. He brought the studio out to them, and from what I understand, it's just spontaneous. This was a spontaneous, when you're rating this song, you got to remember that it was probably just a muck around, and they just decided to press record just for the hell of it. Yep. The gist of it was Ian Stewart came in and played the piano, but if the piano that they played on was in a state of despair, it wasn't in tune, Jimmy Page somewhat to try and match the tuning of the piano, which was obviously all completely out of tune anyway. And the other guys just started playing and stomping and clapping, and I think Robert Plant started improvising, stealing lyrics from Richie Valens, I think, which got credited on this song as well. He just started stealing lyrics from that just to try and fit in. Bonham's noted to be playing his bass drum with just a tambourine, so he's kicking. And I think Bonham actually is one of the main songwriting credits on this song. That being said, there's some laughter at the end, and musicians just having fun. If you put it into context of how they did it, it's pretty funny when you realise that it was probably played on a piano that needed to be probably
demolished. Yes.
It was decapitated basically. I think, you know, they saw the piano there, but they never considered using it for a part of a recording. But because Ian Stewart came in and started playing it as for fun, Pagey just thought, I'm going to come along and play as well. So I gave it a 6 out of 10 because I like the fact. I wouldn't skip the song, but it's not one that I think is a strong point of the record. But it's fun. You know, there's a bit of fun energy to it. But in relation to how I've rated the other songs, I have to give it a 6.
I agree with that. I think that for me, it's lots of fun. I love Boogie Boogie Piano. It's you know, it's one of those things that you know, can just, you know, you hear that, you know, if it's Pete Johnson or Albert Hammonds or any of those guys playing that. As I've got a great story about Boogie Boogie Piano. When I worked in a record shop, this is callow youth, aged 19, shows how much I know. So my boss used to take would have Wednesdays off and I'd have Thursdays off because obviously we opened a thing. So on Wednesday, all the deliveries would come on a Wednesday. So I remember opening this box, and it's got, I think, 25 copies of this album called Back to Boogie by a man called Neville Dickey. And I'm like, well, this is obviously a mistake, isn't it? Tony can't possibly have ordered 25 copies of it. So when he came in on the Friday, I said, I think this must have been a mistake. And he said, no, I ordered 25 copies. I'm like, really? What? I've never heard of this, you know, the arrogance of youth. So, and he looks at me like, yes, Williams, you know, so it's £1 in the pound box. So he waits till 3 people are in the thing. And then he looks at me, he goes, put it on now. He said, I bet you I sell it before the second track. I'm like, yeah, right. So I get this thing out. I put it on, and blow me away if he's not flipping boogie woogie music, is it? You know, he starts off and you go, oh God, really? And of course, halfway through the first track, bloke comes up, excuse me, what's this record? And Tony's like, ha ha. So he picks it, and only £1. So bloke's, oh, I'll take it. Oh, he spent days after that doing it to me. So, you know, and I haven't got a copy. I taped it, but I haven't got a copy. So I love boogie woogie music, and it reminds me of that story, that thing. So, you know, I think you're right, Brad. It's a bit of light relief. You know, it's a bit of, you know, we're in the middle of side 4. I think it's the perfect place for it. But again, that bit of light relief that you need in any album. Not all albums need, you know, can't be all heavy all the time. I like the fact that it's got a mandolin solo, not a guitar solo. I like the fact that it's got a great swing to it, and it's got those echoey drums and things. And as I say, just lots of fun. Apparently, it's based on a Richie Valens song called "Ooh My Head," which I've not checked out particularly. But again, I only gave it a 6 too because I think it's pretty slight. But I would never skip it. It is one, you know, it's a, you know, has a place in my heart on this record, and I would never skip it. And I love it. You know, I think it's such fun. You know, and that ability to have fun and put a smile on your face is not to be underestimated, isn't it? Right now. So that's my thought. I only gave it a 6, but never a skip for me. Definitely not.
Yeah, interesting song. I couldn't work it out. Couldn't work out why it was on there for years. I just, you know, it seemed strange, you know, that there was a song on the song was on the album. Yeah, I love the mandolin solo. You know, you got Robert Plant strumming the guitar there. Yeah, it's interesting. I think the only reason maybe that they've included that on there is because Page was, you know, chuffed that Stewart had recorded a song, because apparently, you know, he wasn't keen on doing anything, you know, with anyone else. So, you know, and we all know that those British guitar players were competitive amongst each other. It's a 5. I used to always skip it, and I probably would skip it if I was having a party. Yeah, look, I don't know. It's, you know, it's an interesting song. Yeah, I'd probably skip it. it's not a song that I would give anybody to say, hey, this is
Anything really.
this is a Led Zeppelin song, but it would be a song that you would point out to somebody if you're doing a Rolling Stones show and you were trying to show the diversity of some of the main characters involved in the Rolling Stones. So that would be really cool if you said, Ian played on a Led Zeppelin song on Physical Graffiti. And people go, wow, really? Wow.
Yeah.
5 out of
Just
5 and a skip.
Yeah. Brad, do you know the story about Ian Stewart and the Stones, don't you? Do you know the story about Ian Stewart and the Stones?
Well, tell me. No,
Well,
I don't know.
basically, he was in the band to start with, and
Yeah.
Andrew Loog Oldham booted him out. Said he's not good looking enough to be in the Stones because he had a bit of a lantern jaw and stuff. So he became their road manager and things. So and but he got hoofed out of the Rolling Stones for not being good looking enough. They are. Which, to be honest, in retrospect, is probably the right decision. Managerially wise, if you're putting a band together, it's the right decision. Harsh, but fair. So, but yeah, that's it. Good. Yeah, but Andrew, I completely agree with you. I mean, I don't think that it is the slightest of songs in any real context. But I think the context of having this is side 4 of a double album, that kind of diversity fits in, and that kind of fun has a place in it. Really,
Yeah, I dig that.
Fun thing. Well, so from that we go to Black Country Woman. To me, it's got an acoustic blues vibe to it. I think it was originally recorded back in '72 on Houses of the Holy sessions. To me, it's got a real Robert Johnson vibe, especially lyrically. I think he did a song that had very similar lyrics. I can't think of what it was. But yeah, it's got a real Robert Johnson vibe to it. It's a mean woman, sort of angry man vibe. It's about a mean woman, an angry man. Hey, mama, what's the matter here, sort of thing. It's got the aeroplane in it. I love how they just sort of left all the imperfections on it. Eddie Kramer's like, shall we roll it, Jimmy? And then obviously everyone knows what goes on from there. Can't get his airplane off. Nah, leave it. Yeah. And then they kick into the song. It's just got that whole that moment thing. It's just like that's what Zeppelin did, and they did well. Open G tuning. Jimmy Page is strumming in an open G. John Paul Jones on the mandolin. It's very soft vocal at the start. Obviously, comes in all power once the drums kick in. The bass, the bass is in the second verse and explodes into like the song, and the song takes off. It ends with a blues guitar hook, dun, 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 and a little bit, what's the matter with you, Mama, from Robert Plant. So I don't know if you guys can elaborate a little bit more on the Robert Johnson energy or lyrical content in this song. But for me, this song would have fitted probably better on, say, Zeppelin 3, maybe, but they hadn't sort of really done it anyway. But if you were going to stick this song, this is one of the songs they picked to fill the album out, obviously from songs that got dropped from other records. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I really love the drums, the way they come in the second. I just love the energy. But I gave it a 6 for that reason, that where I've rated 7, 8, and 9 and 10, it seems to come under that. So yeah, it's not a skip for me. But yeah, it's not one of the sort of song I'd give someone to listen to as this is a representation of Zeppelin. They did dabble with the acoustics quite a lot, Zeppelin, which I love. It wasn't always about the electric guitar blaring, and they always had that delicate side to the band as well. So this is a great example of them having fun. They wrote songs that were serious, and they wrote deep songs. They wrote love songs. They wrote songs with earthy elements, and then they wrote songs like this. So 6 out of 10.
I agree. I think it's another textural thing. Acoustic guitar, 12-string guitar. Is it a 12-string guitar? Sounds like a 12-string guitar to me. And a mandolin. One thing I do mean, Brad, you alluded to it, is that I love the fact that when John Bonham comes in, he just comes in playing dead straight drums. And it's straight. He knows, never mind all the banging about it. This song requires this, and just that straight drumming, I think, was refreshing in a sense that it's not overplayed and really kind of flash. Just again, what suited the song, what the song needed, what it required to be a song, and I think that it's I really like it. It's again, I love the groove. I think the groove is great. I love the harmonica bit that Planty does at the end. That very kind of bluesy thing, and knowing when to pare it back, to suit the song, I think is really, really good. I gave it a 7, and I would never skip it.
No, I don't skip it either. Recorded in the back of Mick Jagger's house, mansion,
That's right, yeah.
whatever you want to call it. It's got everything that we love about an impromptu song. The birds and the plane flying overhead. It's just, it's awesome. Great blues song, rollicking blues song. Again, the words, what's the matter with you, mama? Never ending, nagging, doubting woman blues. It's, again, I love the mandolin. Whoever said that the mandolin has got no place in blues? Jeepers. They need to listen to some Led Zeppelin.
Who said that?
Well, I have.
Is there a school of thought? Is there?
Yeah. The harmonica. Yeah, look, I love the song. It's 7 out of 10. It's never a skip. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say. I love the song. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the last song, which we've done pretty well. I wasn't sure. Probably 2 songs ago, I was like, oh wow, we didn't stop. We've just kept going. So this is the last song, "Sick Again." This song was recorded in February '71. It's a Jimmy Page Robert Plant song. It was recorded at Headley Grange, so this was during the Physical Graffiti sessions, and I think this is one of the ones that Robert Plant had. Jimmy Page had sort of almost in a complete form before he actually brought it to the band. So for me, this song is about groupies lyrically. Robert Plant's is referring to the younger ladies. I mean, from the window of your rented limousine, I saw your pretty blue eyes. One day soon you're going to reach 16, painted lady in the city of lies. So leaning quite heavily on the fun that they had on the road. To me, this has a bit of a T-Rex or David Bowie vibe to it in some aspects. I could really pick up on that. I don't know what you guys think about that. The swaggery Les Paul riff at the start, Jimmy Page, the heavy bass drum, the drum rhythm kicks in. It's a great vocal performance. It's an odd track. Like when you think about it, it's not a straight rock song. It's got diversity. I love the song. I gave it 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, it's I was kind of back to sort of trad Zepp territory, isn't it? With the riff, drums and the bass coming in. I love the things like the slide texture on it. Gives it that bit of different texture. I love. I think it's got great swing as ever. And I've said it a lot of times, but great swing of it. Bonham's drumming. And I love the switch that there's a whole new section at 3 minutes. Where they drop in a section and stuff that seamlessly kind of thing. And I love the guitar and the vocals in harmony towards the end. Playing back and forth. That Page and Plant doing what they did live quite a lot of the time. singing back and forth and playing off what each other does and stuff. So for me, never a skip, and an 8 out of 10, definitely an 8 out of 10 for me.
Before you go over, Andrew, I just want to mention that I forgot to say at the end of the song specifically, I think it's around the 4:41, you can hear a faint cough. It's very audible if you really focus on it. And it's probably John Bonham. And I think they named the song because that whole sick again element, you sick again. I think they named the song Sick Again, but it was predominantly about groupies. Anyway, I didn't want to cut you off there, Andrew, but...
Oh, no, it's no problem. I from my research, it's not necessarily, I don't think it's about them participating with the groupies. From my research, I think Plant, who was a married dad at the time, was more kind of concerned about, the LA queens, these groupies, these 15-year-old girls who were just growing up too quickly, and how that story was related back to Cameron Crowe. And as we know, Cameron Crowe went and took that and made a fantastic film called Almost Famous. Look, I love the song. It starts off, you've got those rapid fire chords, Brad and Simon, E minor to A major riffs. You can't go wrong. Anyone can do that. It's just, any 16-year-old can play along with it. And I think that's the skill with this song. If you are a budding guitar player, or you've been playing the guitar for 30 or 40 years, keeping up with it is the skill here. Because let's face it, even if you've got your tennis racket before you've got your guitar and you're still playing along to these songs, you got to keep that right hand going, man. Love the song. Love the song. Interesting song to end this album. And for the life of me, because I know that we were talking about the Layla album the other day, about how Thorn in the Garden ended that album, and we thought maybe it should have been Layla that ended that album. But for the life of me, I don't know how the heck could you end this album? What song would end this album? So we'll take Led Zeppelin at their word and say, well, this is it. A masterpiece. One skip for me, no skips for you guys. And thanks, Brad. I've fallen in love with this album again. It's just a band at their peak, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's a definite masterpiece, and it really highlights the many colours of Led Zeppelin in one LP, even though it's a double LP. But it highlights the musicianship, the songwriting, their abilities, instrumentation and vocals. But there's simplicity, there's colour, there's darkness, it's all there. I don't have to go on about it, we know. So I'm glad I picked this record because it was great to really listen to it from start to finish, and because it's double LP, about it was just great to listen to it again a couple of times and making my notes and going to my references, and it's just I'm glad we did this one. One of the, probably to me, this is one of my all-time favorite records. It would be definitely within my top maybe 5 records of all. I'd take it if I had 5 records to take. The Deserted Island, this would be one of them.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think that it showcases them at their best. What they do. I think it showcases Page's amazing ability, not only as a musician but as an arranger and a producer, to put all those songs together. And I think it says a lot about the band. John Paul Jones, fantastic. All those keyboard parts, and alongside the bass playing, Bonham's drumming. I can say no more about Bonham's drumming, but I think that ability to know what the song needs, and that's all of them, and do what the song needs, not anymore. It doesn't have to be flash. It doesn't have to be, setting fire to everything all of the time, but actually what the song needs. That everything is done as a servant to the song and making the song better. And I think this album, that's what it proves. That none of those songs, that everything they do is a servant to the song, making the song better, and not just going, look at me, I'm the flashiest guitar player. Yeah. And I think it's really important, those things. I love the folk elements, things like mandolin and acoustic guitars. I think they're a really important part of Led Zeppelin, and this has enough of them on there, alongside the epic songs. I think it's got epic songs. I think that that ability to have Kashmir and Boogie with Stu on the same thing is what makes it great. Good night, great Vanzini. Take care. Thanks so much for joining and sticking with us into the night.
Yep. We're winding up soon anyway. We've been going for 2 hours and 40. Wow.
Sorry. Yeah. But so for me, it's a 10 out of 10 album. As you say, Brad, is in my top 5. If it's the one, it's probably the one Led Zeppelin album. If you needed to have one, this would be the one. Arguable about others, but yeah, and I've really enjoyed. I'm so pleased you picked it, because I've really enjoyed playing it from end to end and really getting into it, digging into it, and kind of and spending some time with it again, because it, and I don't play it very much if I'm in the normal course of events, because I played it 1,000 times when I was 17, so which is all right, but yeah, so it's been a real pleasure to go back to it and realize it is a really great album. It does deserve to be a double album. Those songs deserve to be on there. The scope, the breadth of it are, to me, thrilling. And the kind of, the way you can sit back, close your eyes, and really bury yourself in a song because it's 8 minutes long. is never a bad thing. So thank you so much for that.
They decided to do this record to expose those songs they left off other records, because, like, for example, the Rover. Imagine if we never did that. And that's all I'm saying. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I think
Houses the Holy on Houses the Holy.
It's probably the only Led Zeppelin album, if you had to pick one. And I'm glad that we agree on that. And even Kubrick Lover in the chat saying that it's probably
the one,
his favourite album. Look, and gosh, Led Zeppelin 1 and Led Zeppelin 2 are bloody they're great albums too. Oh my gosh. Look, if you guys haven't seen the message that's scrolling on the bottom there, we are never shy to ask for any support that you might want to give to the show to help pay for our monthly subscription. If you want to give us anything, we would appreciate that, and you'll get a special shout out on the show. Simon, have you got an album for us to discuss next Sunday?
No, I haven't even thought of it. Sorry. Well, having to do the Bob Dylan thing and this one. That's my week's filled up. I'll think of something. But well, have you got something we could discuss next week? Do you want to? You don't have to go in order, do we?
Well, look, I know that you and I have discussed the Beano album, but we've never gone through the tracks.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's do that.
So, because there are some skips. So if I can stick my nose in and push that album, Brad, the Beano album, because there are some gold nuggets on there, and we've discussed the album generally before. We've had a few, and we always said, though, didn't we, Simon, that we'd always come back to that album, because I don't think the history has been written on that album at all. In fact, I'm going to give you guys a bit of a heads up. Martin Clemens, who wrote the Peter Green biography, I sent him a message after Peter Green had passed away, saying, is there any plans for him to re-release the biography? And he said that he couldn't officially say so. So you guys didn't hear this from me. But
by the way, we are live.
yeah,
I'll just point that out.
yeah. But he indicated that he might be doing some research on a new book, but did also point out that the guy that's writing the new biography on Peter Green has gone through and done a lot of research on that Beano album as well. So we're going to get a lot more of that information coming through in the next 18 months, 2 months, because that was the album that inspired, obviously, Peter Green, Jimmy Page, everyone, Andrew Walton, Simon Williams, Brad Cook. so
and everyone else.
Yeah, so can we do that then? Can we do skip and play on the Beano album?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
And then you can give us a heads up on that show for the next one. Is that cool?
Yeah, and you're doing skip or play with Steve on the.
No,
Friday
that's been postponed because. Okay, so that's going to probably be in 2 weeks' time because I've got an event that I have to attend on Saturday. So
an event.
So I'd rather, an event. But our Sunday show will definitely still be going ahead on the Beano album. So if you guys haven't checked that album out, please do, and you can join us in the chat with your rankings and your opinions. That'll be good.
Sounds good.
Fantastic. Yeah, cool.
Balance as well, so I get a bit more balance.
Yeah. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Brad, for giving us the opportunity. Yeah. I really keep saying, if it wasn't for Arvin and Kubrick and Nelson and everyone else in the chat, if it was just the two of us and the three of us, just hanging out, that would be the thrill. The fact that we've got people watching and giving us some good feedback. We get some good views, guys. I don't know if you guys have gone and had a look at the channel, so I appreciate your contributions. We get some good views. We're getting up there. Probably that's the only way that we might get monetized, guys. I think with our views. Because there's two ways to get monetized, with 1,000 subs and or so many views. So,
cool.
Yeah. Now I've got to do a shout out to Brad. If you guys haven't already checked out Brad, this is Brad's channel here. Anyone that's watching the replay, there's Brad there. That's his website. Brad would appreciate you popping over, supporting him, getting onto his Instagram. And hanging out with him. He's active on Instagram, as are we. We've got a channel page over there on Instagram as well. So, yeah.
You've been going live, haven't you, Brad? You've been going live on Instagram.
I'll knock around live here and there just when I'm practicing and stuff. So jump.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's normally when I'm at work, so I can be a bit in and out. And suddenly I'll get phone calls and stuff, and lots of things to do. It's like, oh bloody hell, So you'll see me saying hi and then buggering off and pretend not doing it because I've had to go on a call.
I watched you on Dropkick Blues. It was a bit choppy, mate. It was a bit choppy that show, eh?
Yeah. The Instagram live thing's a bit funny when you do interviews. It's a bit funny, and but we're working on doing a Zoom one. He's going to upload it, maybe just like an interview with me on like my music and stuff like we've done and stuff like that. And we can do another one as well, Andrew, and stuff like that in the future and that. So,
ask him if he wants to join us on a show on a Sunday night. If he wants to come in here and hang out with us for a couple of hours.
I will. He's actually watched. He said he's watched a couple of the things here and there. Maybe not the whole episode, but he's watched some of us.
Awesome. Yeah.
Good. Cool.
Yeah, we can interview him. How he interviews other people, so he can jump on here and the three of us can put him through the meat grinder.
Interrogate him.
Well,
Yes.
to like I'm just throwing out another idea. If we were meant to do something like a Stevie Ray Vaughan El Macombo live DVD, like skip or play, he'd be over it like a hot cake, you know. He'd be all over it like a fat kid in a cupcake, you know. He'd be.
Well, I suppose that'll be your next choice then. That'll be the El Macombo DVD. Okay, so that's Brad's next album. So you guys
look at that. Because we've not really approached the mountain Stevie Ray Vaughan, have we, Andrew?
No, I think we did one show.
We did a show on him, just a kind of historical thing, didn't we?
With Carl, but was with a couple of other guys as well. So no, we haven't done a full show on SVR.
And just remember, Andrew, whether it's this year or next year, we're doing Still Got the Blues by Gary Moore.
Yeah. Oh, mate, there's plenty of awesome records out there. Deja Voodoo, we're off. We're going.
Deja Voodoo.
Oh.
We've
been on for 3 hours.
We'll do it all again. We'll go back and do it all again just for you. No, we won't. Thanks for popping in, Deja Voodoo. It's good to see you.
You're going to do the roll call for us? And
yeah, we'll do the roll call. So thanks to Deja Voodoo. Apologies. We're just
Thank you, Deja.
Clearing off. Kubrick Lover, of course. Really value your input. And Nelson and Sonia, of course. Sonia, love and prayers to you, Sonia. It's, hope you're good. Arvin, of course, the great Vanzini, gone to bed. Gone for sleep. Warren H, I popped in earlier. Who else did we get? Anybody else? A couple of other Guitar Hack, of course, and Mickey Settlemeyer. Thanks, guys, for dropping by. Really good to see you. I know you're all right. So yeah, and as I say, special shout out to Sonia for her work and in managing the chats and stuff. Really good stuff, Sonia. So thank you so much. And we will see you next Sunday. Yes.
Yeah, next Sunday, same time. Same
one show weekend.
Yeah. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Brad. You guys are awesome. Enjoy hanging out with you guys. You guys are awesome. Have a good week.
Yeah. Thanks all. Take care. Stay safe. And we'll see you next week.